Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at today's symposium. My name is Vinci, the host for today. The Sustainable and Smart Building Symposium, it's all about uncovering latest trends in smart building development, market forecasts, evolving customer expectations, as well as key building technologies. The symposium is a dual event that focuses on innovation in the morning and the HVAC in the afternoon. You're most welcome to explore a hallway full of booths and to find potential partners and to pick the ideal solutions for building enhancement. Feel free to click on the robot to chat with any of us or even email us at inquiry@clpsec.com. Just a little housekeeping before we commence. If you have any questions for our speakers, do feel free to type your questions into our chat box and I will bring your questions up to them during the Q&A section after each sharing. Now, without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to invite Senior Director of CLP Innovation, Mr. Austin Bryan, to deliver his welcome speech for us. Austin, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome all of you to the Smart and Sustainable Building Symposium. We at CLP started at a time when electricity was still a novelty. Today, we power millions of homes and businesses across the Asia Pacific. For 120 years, the shared vision of a better tomorrow has held CLP and the community together through the many ups and downs. Although our landscape, our people, and our challenges have changed over the decades, that shared vision of a better tomorrow becomes more important than ever as our environment has changed rapidly and we all need to move to execute strategies towards achieving decarbonization. The reason we wanted to have an event focused on buildings is that in Hong Kong, much like other developed cities, buildings account for about 90% of the city's electricity usage. Over 60% of our carbon emissions are attributable to generating electricity for our buildings. Therefore, achieving energy savings in the property sector is a key aspect of Hong Kong's greener future. So what steps can we take? Many of our buildings were developed decades ago when sustainability was not top of mind for any of us. That's a key challenge. For today, I feel fortunate that we can get together and have our customers, industry leaders, distinguished guests, both here in Hong Kong and around the world, to collaborate. The topic of technology and building modernization is a vital topic that, frankly, is not a nice to have anymore, but a must have. All of us have a role to play in this journey. This could be anything from the way we plan for our operations, our investments in the future, all the way to cultural awareness within our organizations around innovation and sustainability. Despite the obstacles, there are practical steps that we can all take, which just take a bit of planning and awareness. This is what today is all about. Here at CLP, we've seen firsthand with our customers and our stakeholders through our Smart Energy Connect platform how both your existing problems and future planning can benefit from looking at this through a new lens. We're delighted to have deployed energy saving solutions ourselves that have material energy saving for our customers that looked at different mechanisms to solve their energy management needs. You'll hear about some of the stories from us today, but also from other leaders in the industry so that you can get a macro view of what is achievable today and in the near future. We've gathered experts from around the world representing different parts of society to share their take on building a smarter and more sustainable future. You'll hear from them, their innovation journey, examples of solutions deployed, as well as the latest market trends. I hope you enjoyed today's keynote sessions and panelist discussions where we focus on innovation and technology for next-gen buildings in the morning and on HVAC innovation for next-gen buildings in the afternoon. At the same time, in addition to being informative, I hope the sessions also help you to action in your businesses so that we can collectively make a difference. Let's work together for a brighter and greener Hong Kong.
Thank you, Austin, for giving us your warm welcoming speech. Now may I introduce Engineer Dr. the Honorable Lo Wai Kwok, SBS MXJP, to give an opening speech on the topic Towards the Smart City. Dr. the Honorable Lo, please.
Symposium Chairman, distinguished speakers and guests, fellow engineers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a great privilege an honor for me to give an opening address at the CLP Sustainable and Smart Buildings Symposium this morning. The symposium covers important issues for the design, construction, and operation of buildings, plants, and infrastructures from the perspective of pursuing excellence as well as sustainability. The SSR government's Smart City Blueprint for Hong Kong 2.0 stressed the importance of embracing innovation and technology to build a well-framed, smart Hong Kong characterized by a strong economy and high quality of living. Technologies can improve the energy efficiency of buildings as well as the way they are built. Engineers are exploring new methods to mix and match different materials and methods when they incorporate novel ideas to create timeless buildings. The world has been hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has changed our daily lives and business operation modes a lot. It has brought about many insights in taking forward I&T development in the building and construction industry, including technology applications such as DFMA, MIC, BIM, etc. A good example is the construction of the temporary hospital adjacent to the Asian World Expo. It has been successfully completed in January 2021 and handed over to the hospital authority. The rapid completion of the project has not only attributed to the hard work of the contractors, professionals, and workers, but also to the adoption of various intelligent systems to aim the design and construction process, including the use of building information modeling, BIM, to guide project design and construction, to facilitate remote monitoring and subsequent repairs, the use of design for manufacturing and assembly, DFMA, and MIC technology to enhance design quality and construction efficiency, the use of virtual reality, VR technology to enhance design, and the use of the augmented reality AR technology to facilitate on-site installation and inspection. New construction technologies application can significantly reduce the number of site workers, shorten the construction time, facilitate quality control, expedite the completion of the acceptance procedures, and enhance site safety. The unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic has profoundly changed the way we work, we live, and we entertain. People have been given the option to work from home. It is already evidence that viruses can spread through the air and drainage pipes. Future building design and space planning will serve these social demands, such as adoption of new technologies to let in more fresh air and improve building drainage system design so as to prevent the virus from spreading. One indicator of smart buildings is the use of ICT to connect building systems together to optimize operation and whole building performance. The ultimate solution may apply to not just a single building, but to the whole development area. The district cooling system implemented by the SL government at the Kai Tak development area is an energy-saving project and can help reduce heat island effect. It consumes 35% and 20% less electricity as compared to traditional air-con systems and water-cooled systems. The use of DCS will be extended to other new development areas. In the Policy Address 2020, the Chief Executive affirmed that the government will continue to invest in infrastructure with an estimated annual expenditure of over $100 billion on average in the next few years. In this connection, The government has been encouraging the construction industry to adopt innovation and technologies to enhance productivity, build quality, site safety, and environmental performance. The government will launch a pilot scheme of $100 million allocated for the development of the integrated digital platform to drive digitization of public works. Through data integration and analysis, we can monitor project performance continuously and enhance the management of capital works projects. Thanks to digitalization, innovative technologies, and new construction techniques, building industry will boost productivity, streamline their project management and procedures, and enhance quality and safety. These new initiatives in the construction industry will benefit the wider society by reducing construction costs on the environment, by improving the use of scarce materials, or by making buildings more eco-efficient over time. It will benefit the economy by narrowing the global infrastructure gap and boosting economic development in general. To capture all this potential will require a committed and concerted effort by the industry across many aspects, from technology, operation, and strategy to personnel and regulations. I'm sure today you will have fruitful and stimulating exchange of ideas with eminent academics, industry practitioners, engineers, and research scientists. I sincerely wish this symposium a very fruitful event and also wish the CLP every success in its future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. The Honorable Lo. Now may I introduce our first keynote speaker of the day, Hendrik Rosentha, Director of Group Sustainability of CLP Group, and the topic that he's going to share with us is CLP's transition to a sustainable future. A reminder for everyone, if you have any questions for Hendrik, please click the question mark icon on the top right corner of your screen. Then select Q&A sections under the drop-down menu and type any questions you have in the message box. Then press the start chat to submit your questions, and I will bring your questions up at the end of this section. Now, without further ado, I'll pass the time to Hendrik. Hendrik, please.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for having me here today. And of course, Dr. Lo, very much thank you for your kind words to open us today, and Austin as well. What I just want to do this morning in the next 20 minutes or so is to help set the scene a little bit in terms of what it is that we mean at CLP by a sustainable future and what sustainability means at CLP. So there's a number of different areas that we consider and that we look at. We most recently, just a few weeks ago, published our 2020 sustainability report that really clearly outlines some of the priorities that we have. But fundamentally, it is about the business model that we have at CLP and how we operate and what are the different sort of driving forces that influence our business in terms of being able to become a more sustainable organization and contribute positively to the society, to the markets where we operate. So of course we have a generation business, we have a transmission and distribution business, and we also have our customers and our retail business. That has been evolving over time. We have a mixed portfolio of generation assets. We do still have coal power plants in our portfolio. We are shifting towards natural gas. We have a nuclear power portfolio. We have increasingly invested in renewable energy. So solar and wind in particular is what we have been focusing on over the last 10 plus years, actually. So there is sort of a number of different areas that we need to focus on and really capture some of the opportunities to decarbonize the electricity that we bring to our customers and to the market. Within that, and this is really where the changes are, and this is really quite related to the symposium that we have today in terms of sustainable futures and sustainable cities, there's a number of different areas that we need to focus on that really help increase energy efficiency, that increase the efficiency of the systems that we operate, and that really allow for sort of smart electricity delivery to actually happen. And that includes also the electrification, for instance, of certain industries as well as transport in particular. So this is sort of the overall business model that we're operating in as a utility, in particular at CLP, and markets where we operate in. Just to really highlight that as well, it is not just in Hong Kong where we have significant investments. We have also over the time really built out our portfolio in mainland China, in India, as well as in Australia and Southeast Asia. And there is really where we then see the opportunities and synergies to really come to a business model that is fully integrated. We've been talking quite a bit about building a utility of the future, and we clearly outline in our reporting, in our disclosures, what we mean by that. And we've gone through a process over the last several years now to really identify what is the most key issues that are driving us. And this is really what we want to focus on in terms of measuring performance, and that is also what we want to then disclose to the market and showcase in terms of the different pieces that are most relevant here for our business at CLP. So obviously climate change, I mentioned already, we still have coal in our portfolio. It is really about how do we phase out that part of our business, and how do we replace that, how do we grow, and how do we find new opportunities instead, and then through that process deliver lower or low carbon electricity. Technologies, and this is really, I think, quite fundamental for us today as part of this symposium. What is it that is pushing us to really, what is it that we need to capture to increase efficiencies within the actual operations of the business, but what is it that we can then actually deliver to the customers at the same time? So these are very different skill sets. One is about very large fixed assets that we operate, that generate, and then also allows to transmit and distribute the electricity. But the other piece of the puzzle is actually the customer side as well. How do we make sure that efficiencies are indeed happening and people are doing more with less? That's fundamentally what we're trying to get to. Alongside, we have cyber technology, cyber security, and that increasingly has become a core issue that is shaping us in terms of how we respond to these increasing threats, if you like. And it's not just CLP, it is across the industry, it's across all industries essentially, where we do have quite a sort of a changing landscape, and it is about being prepared for that, to protect, again, the assets that we operate, as well as our customers and the customer information. And then, of course, alongside all of these different pieces of the puzzle, it is about our workforce. Who is supporting these changes within CLP to actually happen, and what sort of skill sets do we need, and how do we create a work environment that people really want to come back to every day, fundamentally, so that we can harness the insights and the know-how from individuals to contribute to making this utility of the future happen. For today, I just want to showcase a few examples from our climate change piece, as well as from the technology side. And just to highlight the Sustainable Development Goals as well, we have very much taken those to heart as part of our sort of strategic thinking and our planning. And 4 of these areas are very much key to really supporting these strategic priorities. Okay, so in terms of climate change and how do we respond to that, CLP has had a climate vision. We call it the Climate Vision 2050. We've had that in place and first published that in 2007. So this has been part of our sort of DNA for quite some time now, and it is really about pushing us to be mindful of where we invest, how we invest, what do we try to grow within the business, and then really try to make some public commitments in setting targets. We were the first Asian headquartered utility to actually come up with a decarbonization target, and that in itself is really sort of a testament of what we're trying to do. The whole climate change debate, there is quite a bit of pressure on electric utilities in particular. Again, it's not just CLP, it's around the world to decarbonize. We play such a fundamental role in any society, in any economy, to keep the lights on and keep things moving. And it is really a sort of a strong, I mean, an important role that we have to take on or have taken on to make sure that we can actually deliver on that. So it's about making sure that we understand the climate change commitments at the global level, and what is the individual contribution each company can make for that. We published an updated version. Like I said, it was in 2007 that we first came up with our climate vision. We published an updated version of that at the end of 2019. And we made a number of new commitments here to really sort of come in line with and to continue to support the expectations that are placed on electric utilities. And one is, of course, we will not add any additional coal to our coal-fired generation assets to our portfolio. Quite fundamental, it was not as easy as it sounds to actually make that commitment. It was through a number of discussions at the senior management level, at the board level, where we still had investments on the pipeline that dated back well over 10 years ago that CLP had made in the region. And it was a conscious decision was made. We cannot longer entertain these investments. We have to move away. We have to phase those out of our business. And that was what was really coming through then when we published this document. We will not do this anymore. And then beyond that, what do we do with the existing coal fleet? We have a commitment to phase those out at the latest by 2050. But there's some good news here. Perhaps some of this can actually happen much, much faster. And it is sort of an iterative process that we go through on a continuous basis to make sure that we understand where each of the assets are, what are the constraints that we operate in terms of simply delivering the electricity that each market needs, what are the regulatory constraints, and how do we then replace the capacity as well? What is it that we do instead? Of course, there's an increased focus on renewables and transmission and distribution as well in terms of new investments. But as you can see here, this is our trajectory that we post and publish annually now, all the way to the year 2050 in terms of the carbon intensity of the electricity that we deliver to our customers, that we send out. And like I said, we had targets. So we have interim targets of 2020, this year, or last year essentially was the target year, 2030, 40, and 50. We are proud to report that our 2020 target we were able to meet, where we had set ourselves at 0.6 kilograms of CO2 per kilowatt hour, and we came in at 0.57. The biggest contribution to help us make that happen was the investments we put into Hong Kong, actually, where we are now progressively phasing out our coal assets and replacing that with gas. But over time here as well, you can see that we are sort of coming to a trajectory that there's a second line that's drawn here. I don't know if you can notice, if you can see it on your screen. That second line that is underneath, that's sort of where we should be. That's where we aim to be. That's sort of our target line in terms of carbon intensity. This is the sector decarbonization approach that is advocated for by the Science-Based Target Initiative. We take that very much to heart as our sort of guidepost of where we need to be. And we are working on reviewing our targets. So that was one of the other commitments that we've made this year in terms of what it is that we should actually be coming in at. And we are in the process of really coming to a point where if you were to look at some of the announcements we put out from CLP, we just announced one of our largest and most carbon-intensive coal power assets in Australia is due for early retirement. It's Yallourn, it's mentioned here on this graph as well, to be retiring around 2032. Now it will be, with the agreement that we had from government, around 2028. So we are accelerating this trajectory, and this will be updated as part of the review process, this whole trajectory in the coming year. So in terms of the investments here in Hong Kong, for instance, we had put online a new a gas-fired combined cycle gas turbine that has really helped us reduce the carbon intensity. We are utilizing landfill gas now and generating electricity from that. And we are also putting in significant investments in to make sure that we get more natural gas from the market with a liquefied natural gas receiving terminal. And these are all framed, these investments, this is $12 billion we've put into this under our climate action finance framework. So these are specially bundled bonds that we bring to the market that have, that meet certain environmental or climate criteria that are accepted as being part of supporting the energy transition. To highlight a few other examples of what we do in terms of supporting our customer side and the more broader spectrum other than our own generation assets, we are investing heavily in smart meters. We're rolling those out over the coming years all across our customer base here in Hong Kong. We already have them in place in Australia. Electric vehicle charging infrastructure, both for our own fleet. We've made a commitment to convert our entire fleet of vehicles at CLP towards to electric as part of our commitment under EV100. But we're also supporting the broader community to switch to electric vehicles and providing various charging infrastructure solutions for that. Battery storage, we have investments in Australia in that. We, as part of the commitment under phasing out Yallourn, as I mentioned earlier, we are instead building one of the largest battery storage facilities as well. So we're really getting into this space quite heavily. And then the customer solution side, and this is, I think, we'll have a lot of focus on that, a lot more concrete examples for the rest of the day that you'll be hearing on that. Is certainly an area we want to invest in and continue to support. And then also the transmission and distribution side of things, where we've made new investments in India in that part of the business, but also here in Hong Kong, we continue to have a focus on that. TCFD, now to be getting quite technical from a disclosure perspective, but we've been working quite actively with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development to really outline what are some of the key criteria that companies need to be looking after in the electric utility space in particular, of how do we manage the climate risks and climate opportunities, and what is the real financial value at risk here for a given company. And we've been working quite actively to develop methodologies around that and to continue to enhance our own disclosure. Okay, so some more examples, and then I'll close from the digitalization space. And really all of these sort of very much supportive of well, enhancing performance, but also safety is a key aspect. And when we talk about big, heavy equipment, there is inherent risk to the people who operate them. So we've come up with a number of different solutions to really showcase, not just showcase, but to make the workplace safer. And drones, and in particular, have been quite useful for us to do inspections at height. This could be our wind turbines, which are very, very tall. In case you haven't been close to one, those are big pieces of equipment as well. Climbing up can be quite daunting. So if we were just doing visual inspections to see if there's any cracks or any sort of issues with the equipment, let's fly a drone up, and then we can minimize that risk right then and there. We do have robotics as well that we've been deploying, both within the actual turbines themselves, where we do have to have regular visual inspections to make sure that those are operating fine. So these are confined spaces. You don't really want to have people crawling in there unless absolutely necessary. So we've deployed new technologies for that. And similarly as well, our water intake and pipes for some of the plants that we operate in requires also regular inspection. And instead of having divers go out there into maybe waters that are not necessarily, if you're a recreational diver, you wouldn't want to go in. You need professionals to do that. But again, there's inherent risks there. We've deployed drones, underwater robotics to really look after that. And then again, another piece that has helped us increase efficiencies is our solar panels and inspecting, not just inspecting those, but cleaning them. They need regular cleaning. with water to make sure that they are not covered in dust and operating as efficiently as possible. Let's minimize the use of water and minimize sort of the work required for that. And we've had robotics deployed for that as well. So these are just some of the examples in terms of what is it that we actually do to utilize new technologies to enhance our own operations and efficiency. Here, this is the customer side of things, Smart Energy Connect. Obviously, this is what we're here for today. And I won't dwell on this one, but this is very much an important piece of the puzzle to help our customers use less. I think that's really what it comes down to. And it goes across from the residential all the way to the commercial and industrial side of things. So there's a lot we can do there so that we don't waste electricity. Just as sort of a couple final points here in terms of the capacity for innovation. We have an innovation team, and they've been very instrumental here to put this symposium on today. But it is very important for us to also have the right governance in place on innovation. How do we bring forward certain ideas within the company and socialize that to make sure that we get buy-in, but at the same time also sort of go into new technologies. So we actually have a research institute as well. So those technologies that are not yet commercially available, deployable, how do we explore those? How do we keep an eye on those? And there's a rather large group of individuals within CLP to help us look after all these changes that are happening. And then as a final piece, the sort of new startups, those who actually have the guts to really jump in with new ideas and try to build a business on that, and that is relevant to our sector in particular. We've been supporting free electrons, for example, is one of them, a number of different platforms that allow startups to come to us and meet with us and also meet with our peers to see how we can deploy some of these innovative ideas in practice. And we've been investing quite heavily into some of those as well, with direct investments or via certain funds to support emerging technologies so that we are on top of those changes. Yeah, so those are just some of the examples in terms of how climate change is relevant to us, how technologies are important to us, and how emerging technologies in particular, how we can really grasp them and make them part of our business. And not to forget the cyber piece that I mentioned earlier. That is very important for us to keep a handle on to ensure the safety continues within the systems that we have. And then, of course, the people, the workforce, everyone around who makes this happen on a day-to-day basis is really fundamental for us to look after. So that's sustainability at CLP in a nutshell. 20 minutes, but okay. Any questions, be happy to take.
Thank you, Hendrik, for setting the scene for today's symposium. So now we actually have some time for taking questions. And, well, to submit your questions, it's as easy as clicking the question mark icon on the top right corner of your screen. Then select the Q&A sections and type your questions in the message box, and then click Start Chat to submit your questions, and I will bring your questions to Hendrik. Okay, I can see we have some question lining up already. So to start off with, Hendrik, the first question is about, over the past years, many businesses have braced the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. So given CLP's experience, what potential do you think going sustainable could bring to businesses during this recovery?
Yeah, no, that's a very important question. And if I can just sort of reflect, I'm actually quite glad that I'm standing far enough apart from all of you right now, so I don't have to wear a mask. Obviously, realities have changed over the last year in terms of how we do business, in terms of how we interact, even today with the virtual symposium. I think for us and the priorities that I just outlined and sort of showcased is, it's quite clear at CLP we have a long-term view. This pandemic will pass at some point or another, and we will continue along the trajectory and along the business plans that we have. So fundamentally, COVID hasn't really sort of shifted our sustainability thinking. It has very much sort of even perhaps accelerated or enhanced some of the priorities that we've outlined. If you were to really think about climate change, for instance, there's increasing pressure over the last year in particular. I think COVID has actually sort of crystallized that we have to take care of our planet, and we have to take care of each other in order to continue being, together and having our businesses thrive. So for any companies who's dealing with the COVID situation, and I think all of us are affected very differently, and some of us are affected very, very severely. It is sort of about thinking for the long term here, and how do we pull through.
Thank you, Hendrik. Next question we have is CLP has always been a leader in integrating sustainability into businesses. So what do you think is crucial in bringing ESG into the corporate decision-making process?
Yeah. So very good question, and I think it's fundamentally it's about governance. It's about the governance within your organization of how do we bring these issues, these topics to the senior management team, to have the buy-in from the senior management team to really sort of respond appropriately, and then further on get the board of directors involved in some of the thinking around ESG. So that's sort of the first step, I think, that any organization would need to take, because it isn't just about sort of going green or doing the right thing. It's much, much more than that. If you were to look at it from a business perspective, it is really fundamentally about risk management. What is it that's shaping and driving your business? And that's what I've tried to outline here today with those 4 key areas. Those are shaping CLP. If you don't manage these areas and create, transform risk into opportunity, there's going to be a fundamental risk to the business in the long term, and that will not be good in terms of shareholder value and really making sure that the investors are sort of satisfied that you are indeed managing the business appropriately for the long term. So governance is the starting point, but it's really about understanding the risks as well.
Okay, so I think we still have a few more questions, but due to time constraint, let me ask you one last question. Would you mind sharing more on how CLP set the carbon intensity target as mentioned in your keynote with us?
Yeah, so it is fundamentally about the assets that we operate, and how we see those phase out over time, and the various markets that we have investments in. And it is understanding sort of the opportunity in terms of when, from a regulatory perspective in particular, from a customer perspective, when can we phase out certain assets that are more carbon intensive, and what opportunities exist to really invest in lower carbon technologies that would then bring us more in line with the carbon intensity expectations. So yeah, it is a complicated model actually that we run, and we update it on an annual basis. And yeah, happy to take whoever asked the question to sit down and have a coffee and talk more about it.
Great, thank you so much, Hendrik. Wonderful section indeed. Due to time constraints, we actually couldn't cover all the questions we have in the chat box. But don't worry, if there's anything that you would like to discuss with Hendrik further, you can actually email us at inquiry@clp.sec.com, or even find Hendrik for a coffee, as what he said just now. So once again, thank you, Hendrik, for the wonderful keynote section with us. And now we shall move on to the second keynote, and the next topic will be unlocking sustainability in the cloud. And we are so honored to have invited Olivia Klein, lead technologist of Asia Pacific of AWS, to share with us. But before I pass the time to Olivia, definitely a gentle reminder for everyone. If you have any questions that you would like to ask Olivia, remember to click the question mark icon on the top right corner of your screen, then select Q&A sections under the drop-down menu, and then type your questions that you have in the message box. I strongly encourage that you ask a question as early as possible, since just now we have so many active participation. The earlier you send in, the high chance you may be answered by Olivia. So without further ado, Olivia, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, there we go. Thank you very much, and happy to be here. So today I want to share a little bit of what we do in terms of Amazon and Amazon Web Services around sustainability and renewables. I want to look a little bit into how we can build digital platforms in a more sustainable manner, and specifically how cloud computing can help us do that. And then we end up with a few examples of some of our customers. But if we talk sustainability, there are actually a lot of elements to sustainability. Today I will primarily focus of course, on the topic of energy. And so we're going to have a look at first the infrastructure on which we're building. And I'll share a little bit what Amazon as a whole is doing and how you can benefit from using, for example, our platform. But more specifically, how you can also utilize it effectively and then build intelligent buildings on top of it. But to kick it off, let's have a quick look at what Amazon as a whole is doing. And when I say Amazon as a whole, it's not just AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, which I would represent, but the whole of Amazon. So anything around retail, Amazon.com, Amazon.in, etc. We're looking into how can we actually achieve the Paris Agreement 10 years early. So that was our commitment. We called it the Climate Pledge. We announced that in September 2019. And the idea is can we be 100% net carbon neutral by 2040? Actually, we set the target also in terms of renewables to say by 2024, we want to be running on 80% renewable energy. By 2025, 100% on renewable energy. And again, this is not just AWS, but all of Amazon. And also we're looking into how can we make our shipments, which is a big challenge for a company like Amazon. How can we bring shipments to zero carbon neutral by 2030? So what do we do? For example, if you take the retail space before jumping into AWS and our platform, we're looking, for example, to take our Amazon fulfillment centers and, of course, power them to solar, basically install solar power panels on all the roofings of those fulfillment centers. In addition to that, we're looking into how can we make use of electric vehicles. You might have seen that we recently just launched in Los Angeles, actually, our prime EVs, our electric vehicles, to do electric vehicles for delivery. But let's talk a bit about energy, and this is specifically important also when we look into AWS. So by 2025, our target is to be 100% on renewable energy. How do we achieve that? Obviously through solar, obviously through wind farms that we're building. Currently we have about 127 renewable energy projects all across the world with an overall power generation of 6.5 gigawatt when they're all operational. So that's 18 million megawatt hours annually, which as of last year made Amazon the largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy. And we're not going to stop there because we're going to achieve that target by 2025. And obviously, as I go into the platform now, you as a consumer can obviously rely on us to actually use renewable energies for any of your IT infrastructure that you're using. I said it's not just energy when we talk about sustainability. Another thing that we're looking at is how can we, for example, reduce the amount of water that we consume. If you ever looked into data center facilities, you can cool them through air, but also through water cooling. And our idea here is, can we cool it with water without actually wasting fresh water supplies? So we're looking into things like evaporative cooling, reduce the amount of potable water usage, recycle the water. And you can see some pictures there of these pipes that basically recycle the water within our data center facilities. But let's stick with data center facilities for a moment, because obviously if you're looking into making your buildings more intelligent, or as a company as a whole, and COVID has probably, or the current ongoing pandemic, has transformed a lot of companies to go fully digital. So we need an IT platform, right? And that runs on services, runs on data centers, that runs obviously on the cloud, right? But if I run on the cloud, it's still AWS who maintains data center facilities. However, what we have found is with all the investments that we do into running our facilities efficiently, into some of the things around chipsets that we manufacture, in which I will get to in a bit, we actually found that compared, and this was research done in the US, but probably globally, it's roughly similar, compared to an enterprise data center of, average enterprise companies out there, will find that we are a lot more efficient when we run it in our AWS data center. Specifically, we found that up to 3.6 times we are more energy efficient, which actually allows us to be up to 88% reducing the amount of carbon emissions that we have just by running these servers. Why is that? Well, it's all about utilization rates. So you find when you run a data center, you're looking into, well, how can I find a nice granularity between having enough capacity to run my application, but at the same time don't have underutilized servers. We actually found that in average, the US enterprises that run their own data centers only have a utilization rate of about 18%, which is actually really not great. So we're looking into how we can do that better. Now, if you use AWS as a platform as a whole, you benefit from those efficiencies. We find that in average, you have 77% fewer servers that you're actually running just based on having a better utilization rate, and I'll show in a minute how you can do that, but as such also consume less power, and as such reduce the carbon footprint that you're emitting. Now, I talk about efficiencies that we do in a data center, so it's not just about us running it efficient in terms of looking at utilization rates, but we're also investing into the actual chipsets that we manufacture to run in those data center facilities. So we give our customers full choice, so no matter if you want Intel or AMD chipsets, or you want the latest macOS, but more importantly, I want to focus on something called Graviton 2. Graviton 2 are actually ARM-based processors that AWS manufactures themselves. And why do we do that? Because it allows us to build more energy-efficient CPUs that you then as an end consumer can use for your digital projects. To put that a little bit into perspective, you can see here on the picture, this came actually from a keynote last year where our VP of Global Infrastructure is explaining how Graviton 2 can be used as an ARM-based processor, which is much more power efficient, actually in comparison to some of the general, this I think was an Intel CPU that we're comparing it against here, was dramatically more power efficient on the CPU cores. Right? And that obviously allows us to run applications a lot more energy efficient. But talking about that, you know, that's kind of the baseline in terms of infrastructure and how we can make it more efficient. Now, obviously, if I want to consume cloud services as an end consumer, I don't really want to care about that, right? That's AWS's role in business to do that for you. But let's talk about effective utilization. When I mentioned earlier, you know, a lot of data centers don't really run efficiently. Why is that? Well, think about demand and capacity, right? And specifically for an IT platform. Any digital service that you offer needs to obviously cope for the incoming demand. Now, what you can do is you can say, I predict my user base and my platform is growing over time, you know, with a certain prediction, and then I go and buy and rack and stack traditional hardware and servers and capacity and network switches to be able to meet that demand. Now, the reality is that very often the actual demand varies greatly from what you predicted in terms of the demand. And that either way is then wasted resources in terms of having over-procured and running resources unnecessarily, which obviously consumes electricity, or if you have too little resources, you know, you can't match the demand. So the idea is can we actually get to a scenario where I as a consumer don't need to worry about capacity, where everything automatically would scale? And, you know, talking about utility, that's a perfect analogy. If I switch on my light, I don't really care, you know, how much electricity I consume or not. It just automatically will be the right amount. We want to do the same when it comes to digital platforms for IT services. For anything you can consume, we have auto-scaling capabilities. That's one of the main reasons folks move to cloud computing, because you have elastic capacity and you only consume what you actually need for your services. How does that work? Well, that's a concept. If you're in the IT space, you might have heard of a concept called serverless. Now, that obviously does not mean that it doesn't run on servers, but what it means is that you as an end consumer don't need to worry about provisioning infrastructure or scaling that infrastructure out or thinking about how do I make it highly available or secure it. It means that you only pay for what you actually really use, and as such, only consume the amount of electricity that you only use for your platform. And when I'm talking serverless, this is not just about compute, right? If I need to run a platform, I need computational services, but it's also databases, messaging services. Maybe I run analytics or machine learning services. You know, for cloud providers like AWS, they provide you a full spectrum of saying, choose the services that you want to use, consume only when you want to consume it, and that allows us to run very energy efficient in that regard, only basically provide you with what you need when you need it. All right, so that's kind of around utilization. Now, the other thing is when we talk about smart buildings, for example, what can we do to intelligently manage, our buildings and basically use data and sensors and IoT maybe to reduce the amount of energy that we consume within a facility. And now the good news is, the IoT, which has been talked about for many years, is a complete reality. Most buildings by now, especially newer built buildings, have lots of different sensors and devices, from cameras, temperature sensors, to intelligent HVAC systems, to many other different systems that allow us to actually understand the physical world and build a digital twin around it. And with that digital twin, allow us to more effectively decide when we maybe switch on an HVAC system. What that specifically means, though, if I say smart, it's kind of that initial stage of sensors, data capture, what's going on, what's my physical world doing, metering, how much electricity am I maybe consuming. Do that in real time and integrate that into past performances, right? Basically look, how many people were in my building in the past, now compared in real time what's happening. And that allows you to then use intelligent services, think analytics, think machine learning, or AI if you prefer that word, and then model around, predict what my demand would be, and then make my buildings smarter, and I'm also visualizing that. If we take that as a bit of a step-by-step, colors came a bit out wrong there, but basically if you think about it, it's multiple levels of the building. If we start off, we connect the building, we install sensors, we understand what's going on, we make it then intelligent. From there we can make smarter decisions, build analytics services, and model around what we're actually using and consuming, all the way to a complete self-aware building. Everything switches on and off just based on analytics, based on machine learning, based on what we actually sense in that physical world. And when we talk sensors, one of the things that we probably think of is things like temperature sensors, electricity consumption. But what about cameras? Cameras are often installed in many different buildings, and cameras can be a great resource for us to build intelligent buildings or smart buildings. Take, for example, we recently announced something we call AWS Panorama, which is basically a small little ruggedized box. You can see it here on the slides, which is like a 1U factor. But what it allows you to do is you can take your existing IPTV, CCTV cameras, you plug it into this box, and now you have computer vision that you can run on top of your existing cameras. Why would I run computer vision? Well, now I can get insights, for example, on how many people are somewhere and how people are moving around. Actually, some of our customers use it for workplace safety. They're using do people keep their social distance, for example? There are many different ways of using computer vision to make your building more intelligent. The key point is you can retrofit this in. You don't need to buy the latest and greatest camera. A device like this can take an existing camera and make it smart. In a similar gist, if we think, for example, about HVAC systems, right, or just in general, especially in manufacturing others, you might have a lot of different generators, pumps standing around. A lot of these might not have or have not been equipped with sensors. So how do I make them smart? Well, there are different ways of doing it. One example is, for example, Amazon Monitron, but of course also with the Smart Energy Connect platform here that we hear a little bit more about later. Many different ways of actually retrofitting equipment, making it smart. Monitron is, for example, an example from Amazon where you can just attach sensors to it, have a gateway, and then, for example, do predictive maintenance, understand when pumps are maybe about to break or if they consume too much electricity, etc. And also other services that do it with existing scenarios. We talked a lot about smart buildings, and we hear more about that later, but I wanted to give you a few other examples also from customers that try to be more sustainable in a different industry by using data, by using intelligence. Take, for example, the airline industry. One of our customers called Qantas, which is the Australian national airline. They were looking into how can we actually reduce the amount of fuel that we're burning through and improve our flight plans that we have. And the idea here was, again, lots of different data that you collect, weather information, flight path information, engine, turbine information, etc. They bring that to AWS and then run simulations. And that flight path simulator allows them to find better flight paths and actually reduce up to 50 million kilograms of carbon emissions yearly just by doing that. That's really the power of data. Or take something straight down to the consumer, and I just wanted to take another example here. That already happened in 2013, where we had, for example, British Gas, which went ahead and said, well, could I build a mobile application to remotely control water and heating? And they allow them to, every household, save up to £150, which obviously, in an equal manner, reduces the amount of carbon footprint that we emit. Bottom line is, you probably want to build an intelligent platform. You want to make use of data. You might have heard of things like data lakes and machine learning and analytics. This is obviously where your cloud computing provider will be useful. AWS is here to help. Smart Energy Connect platform is here to help with CLP to build intelligent systems on top of your cloud computing provider and reduce the amount of carbon footprint that you have. That's all I had to cover for today, but I think we got still time for a variety of questions and answers. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Olivia, for the fantastic sharing from AWS. And well, before we have some questions for Olivia, just a reminder for everyone, if you have any questions, remember to click the question mark icon on the top right-hand corner and then select the Q&A sections. Type your questions inside the message box. Remember to click Start Chat, that button, to submit your questions. Okay, here we go. We actually received a few questions for Olivia. And to start off with, the first question, it's, are all systems required for an intelligent building need to be cloud-based? And what are the security concerns associated with it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we talk about cloud computing and AWS specifically, we have a variety of different options. So obviously for a lot of services, you might run them in what we call AWS regions or AWS local zones, which is the managed environments or data centers that I talked about earlier. But we also have the ability to do what is often referred to as edge computing. So we have a variety of different services that allow you to run some parts of the services that AWS provides within, what we call outposts, actually physical machines that you can rack and stack in within your own facilities, or fully managed services that you can run at the edge, meaning in your own facility. So we think about smart buildings. That's probably the way we want to address it. Some of the logic will probably sit in a basement somewhere of the building itself. That can run on something like what we call AWS Outposts, which is actually hardware that we provide you. You can put in the basement of your building, have some intelligent run there, and then bring some of that data back into your cloud environment, where you probably want to run your analytics and machine learning, get great benefits from doing that. So long story short, the bottom line of it is you have full flexibility around where you want to run your services. We provide you flexibility around saying, of course you want to run in the cloud computing environment wherever it makes sense. If for whatever reason you have latency constraints, or you have intermittent network connectivity, you can also run it at the edge, meaning in your facility, in the basement of your building, for example, as such, and have as such also control of the security element as such.
Thank you, Olivia. And actually, for the second question, one of the audience asked regarding during your sharing, you mentioned about the AWS Panorama. They would like to know: is there any concern regarding the privacy?
Yeah, so this is always a great question. And from an AWS perspective, of course, we provide our customers full flexibility and choice on how they store and handle their data and full control of it. But I think generally we talk about privacy or security. I think the nice thing about going digital, nice thing about using cloud computing is you have full granular control on how data is stored, how data is encrypted. By the way, with AWS, by default, everything will be encrypted at rest. There's actually no option to not encrypt data. That is the default. You're in full control as a consumer on how you handle that data. There are also a variety of different services on how you can, for example, remove maybe personally identifiable information or mask a variety of different data sets that you have. So again, it goes down to what kind of targets, security or privacy requirements or targets you have, and our platform allows you to adjust it based on that and say, I want this to be obviously encrypted, I want it to be masked, etc. Only certain people can access it. That's exactly what we encourage. And of course, if you ever have questions around that, our team is more than happy to help to find the right approach for you there.
Thank you, Olivia. Well, for the next question, it's is AWS using VPPA for achieving 100% RE? And is there any case that you can share with us in the Southeast Asia?
I'm not entirely sure what the VPPA acronym stands for, but I take it as a question around renewable. Yeah. So, okay, got it. So if we talk about renewables, actually, so we run a variety of different projects all across the world. If you go to our AWS website, you actually find our sustainability initiatives, and you find an entire landscape or a map where we run these renewable projects. They're primarily around wind farms and solar farms. A good chunk of that is currently mostly in US and Europe. You'll find that across Asia Pacific and India, China, we run a variety of different projects. And to get to our target of 2025 of running 100% renewables, of course we keep expanding that. But yeah, if you want that person who asked it, if you want the specific details, we got a very nicely fledged out map on all our 127 different projects that we run across the world. Just look for AWS sustainability and you find a map on our website with all the details.
We still have one more question lining up. It's regarding IoT solutions. It's a great idea for new buildings, but how easy it is to retrofit inside an old building?
Yeah, that's again a great question. I think it's if you look at that map that I kind of showed in terms of step by step on how you make a building slowly intelligent. If you build a new building, of course, great, we can put in the latest and greatest. The reality is most buildings need to be retrofitted. If you have existing systems where you have, some OSI or whatever software that reports some data in, you can easily integrate that. But even with the few examples that I showed with things like Panorama, Monitron, Amazon Lookout, or other things, you can easily take existing equipment, retrofit your cameras, make your buildings slowly intelligent, step by step. And that is actually, if you look at our customers, that's obviously a lot of customers do exactly that. They don't just go out with a big bang, but they do step by step, looking into how do I make my building smarter. After I connected it, after I understand the data, I can slowly make decisions. I can install actuators, maybe into my HVAC systems, etc. And of course, have Smart Energy Connect platform maybe to help me out with that more.
Great, thank you once again, Olivia. I think it looks like that we have covered all our questions already. Thank you so much once again, Olivia.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if there's anything that our audiences or participants would like to discuss further, do remember you are very welcome to email us at enquiry@clpsec.com. So after the second keynote speech, we will be now moving forward to our third keynote speech, and we would like to welcome our next speaker, Serena Powell, Head of Digital Products of CLP Innovation, to share with us the topic, Achieve Carbon Reduction Through Innovation. A reminder for everyone, if you have any questions regarding Serena's presentation, remember to click the question mark icon on the top right corner of your screen, select Q&A sections under drop-down menu, and type your questions inside the message box, and I will bring your questions to Serena after her sharing. Without further ado, Serena, the stage is now yours.
Cool. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Serena. I'm currently Head of Product Management at CLP Innovation. Today, I'm going to share with you more about how to achieve carbon reduction through innovation. So there will be 4 key takeaways. The first one is the digitalization. How important is it in our innovation journey? The second one, we will actually focus on what matters in your low carbon journey. The third topic, we'll talk about how we are doing it at CLP Innovation. And the fourth one, we will be briefly introducing some products that might be relevant to you. So let's look at the role of digitalization in the future-proof building. I find out that, there actually are about 6 stages that we can, go through in the digitalization journey. So the first one would be rigid. So it's like, your organization is not ready for innovation or digitalization. And then the second one would be experimental. So you are trying some experience or experiment within the organization, but innovation or digitalization is not a great topic. The third one would be really intentional. So you intend to do something, you might have task force. The fourth stage would be strategic. So, you have a particular innovation team within each department. Each department is trying to do something about it. The fifth stage would be dedicated. So like us at CLP Innovation, actually we have a dedicated innovation team to be you're looking into different solutions in the market. And the last stage would be fluidity. Hopefully we will be achieving fluidity in the future, which is innovation and digitalization in every corner of your company. Now, let's look into where you are, because before we go into the low carbon journey, digitalization is so essential, and if we're not ready for it, then it will be hard to achieve low carbon. So what you have to do is you can scan this QR code, or you go to minty.com and then type the use code 23607014, and then you will be able to join an online survey. So, this is more like interactive session. I know you're on this other side of the screen. We really want to engage you and see how you are doing with your innovation journey and where you are. So just to remind you, there are a few stages like rigid, experimental, intentional, strategic, dedicated, and fluidity. I think they're quite self-explanatory, So let's see how's the voting going. So let's get interactive. Okay, so a lot of companies said they're intentional. There are some experiments. Some company thinks they're rigid. Quite a few on strategic, but nobody's is actually in dedicated stage yet, just like us. Okay, thank you. So that's a very interesting insight. I think a lot of companies are just trying to experience or experiment innovation, but you don't know what digitalization is playing as a role within your company. And this is why we have to talk about it today. So you have to be aware of it first. Otherwise, it's hard to get digitalized. And you'll just be experimenting all the time. So, what is required for the future of buildings? So lately, we have been interviewing with a lot of industry leaders in food and beverage industry, logistics, building owners. What we find as a common topic that everybody talks about would be predictive maintenance. So people want to rely less on human interference. People want to understand how are their machines and the building, performing, and how it will be failing in the future, so that they want to predict, and maintain the building better. The other topic which is very interesting would be mobile first too. Our workforce is aging in Hong Kong. More and more we want to rely on our mobile phone, but how can we just get away from, WhatsApp communication within our building with the building managers? How can we rely on a centralized and consolidated system so that our building will become smarter? How can we achieve automation? And one very interesting topic as well would be the prediction of the end of life cycle of your machines, so that you really just replace your machine as needed, and you don't need to throw them away or replace them when it's the wrong time. So that's the top view for management. That's what the management wants. But then what about the modern building managers? If you look into the modern building managers, we still find out the user actually have three main problems. The first one is there are a lot of sensors, a lot of technology being introduced in the market. So which one is good for you? The second one, of course, in every project that we have in any company, what's the ROI? The third one, which I find quite interesting, it's a lot of customers was telling us, we do care about the environment, we think energy consumption is important, but compared to all other factors in our company, including like our fuel consumption or maybe shopping mall traffic, energy always come last. So how can we change the scene? This is why we have created Smart Energy Connect. If you look into the past of buildings, HVAC, which is the most important equipment within your building, this technology itself actually haven't really changed in the past 30 years. As it has been stable, the reliability and the efficiency might have been advancing, but actually the main technology wasn't really changing. So what about the future? How can we connect our current building which is not the smartest one, into a future-proof building? How can we do that? If we look into the market, what is important, it's, you might have different solutions. You might be starting to introduce 1 or 2 or 3 solutions into your building. But how can you integrate them together? Because too many of system isn't really solving our problem. We have too many dashboards to look at all days, right? Exactly this is why we have created Smart Energy Connect. So Smart Energy Connect actually is the all-integrated marketplace for you, for our enterprise customer, to find the right energy solution and to manage your resources. We understand that our customers don't just want to look into how they can become more energy efficient, but also how they can improve their resource organization and arrangement. So at clpsec.com, if you just scan the QR code, you'll be seeing, there are sustainability and energy-related solutions. That's, of course, the theme. And then we also have wellness, connectivity, and productivity-related solutions. But how do we know, actually, the solutions are right for you? So at CLP-SEC, actually, we look at different solutions every day. We will be doing a 3-stage screening. So the first stage, we'll be looking into the brand owner or the startup company's potential. So what's the scalability and what's the survival rate as well for the startup or for the small, medium-sized company? And then the second stage, we'll be looking into the business case. Where in Hong Kong can we put this technology? Who needs it? And the third stage, we actually will be looking into the actual demo and the actual reference check of the company. So are they any good in the existing market? How can we bring them to Hong Kong? And constantly we'll evaluate them through Kano models so we have a map and understand where the products are. So interestingly, people always ask, are you sure this is the best solution? To me, there is no best solution, but really the right solution. How can we identify they're right? It is because the whole process that we are screening the product will lead to a right choice. So if you look into each month, we screen over 100 startups or like different brands. And then we have a chat with our sales to understand what is needed in the market and also mapping them back to our customer problem statement. So we make sure that there are somebody who need this product. But what really differentiates CLP SEC, it's actually the trial. Because we have the resources to trial all these different technologies, be it IoT or like AI technology in CLP buildings, as well as partnering with our customers to trial at their building, so that we will be knowing if that particular product is really delivering its promise. So after all this trial, we'll be putting it into the market, repackage it, and then sell it into the market. So Smart Energy Connect, actually we have different solutions. It might be a little bit confusing, but really these solutions can be grouped into 4 categories. The first category would be on the top left, which is HVAC related. Second category would be on the top right, which is RE, like solar and lighting related. Third category would be in the bottom right, which is space and asset management. So how can we optimize our space and also optimize our asset? The fourth one would be electrical. So it could be, sub-metering, which is to understand how you spend your energy, as well as energy benchmarking. So now, you might be considering, okay, I want to do digitalization. I might want a few, different solutions. But how do I start? How do I go about it? So next session will be about focus on what matters. If you are considering to, implement some technology, I would say let's start with the bottom layer. As you can see on this graph, actually, I've categorized, your building technology into 3 areas. The first one would be chiller optimization. So before looking into anything else, I think it's really worth looking into how you can optimize your chiller. It can be through HVAC automation, so you automate your whole HVAC system and focus on energy saving. Because typically your building management system is just focusing on, running your building. It's just like your legs and the arms. But then it really doesn't give your building management system a brain, so that by automating your HVAC, it will be thinking about energy saving all day. And then by this logic, it will help you to save energy. Apart from that, you can also consider chiller monitoring, such as, is the sensors actually, up to date? Are they calibrated? So if they're not calibrated, how can we make sure that your HVAC is performing at its best? The third one that you can be looking into would be the device monitoring. So are the particular pump working fine? Would they be failing soon? So this is the bottom layer. So now you might have done automation. The next stage, what do? You have to look into your building health as a whole. So that means actually it's just like having a doctor or like a smartwatch monitoring your whole building system 24/7. So for example, I'll be talking a little bit about our product, one of our product called Building Scope that monitors your whole BMS, all the data points to be integrated in one place, and it predicts when will things be failing. So through this technology, we will actually be able to know if your system is reliable and how you can save money and time. So once you have done chiller optimization and building health monitoring, then what's next? You have to look into your office or your campus or basically the comfort level of the user. So it could be, like comfort side optimization with our technologies, or you can considering doing sub-metering so that it breaks down your energy consumption level and you understand what's happening to your energy consumption. So these are the 3 steps where you can, where you can deploy different technologies to help your buildings to become smarter. But our role here at CLP really is to integrate all these different data into one platform or into one tool that is easier for you to use so that you don't need to constantly open 10 different solutions and look at, different things at your building and don't know what's happening. We will help you to make sense out of your data. Just a little story of, our products. I remember when I first joined CLP 2.5 years ago, we only have one product, which is called Building Scope. So Building Scope is a cloud solution. It's an AI-driven technology that uses the energy footprint of all your building management system data. So if the energy footprint fluctuates, adding all the ambient temperature and different dynamic data from your BMS and your external environment, it will be determining if there is a problem with a particular device. And if you don't fix it, how much money will you be wasting? So we only had one product. But then I think 2.5 years ago, people weren't really ready for cloud solution. Gradually the market is adapting it, and then people are starting to ask about, so what about on-premise solution? This is how we actually find products. We constantly listen to our customer. And then now, apart from, just cloud monitoring of your BMS, we also have a solution called Plant Pro. This is an on-premise solution. It's an edge computing that constantly get all your BMS data and control your BMS so that it actually will be optimizing the energy consumption of your BMS, of your HVAC on the plant side only. So we have all these different kind of solutions, whether you're just looking into, I want cloud, more AI-driven, or I would be looking into more machine learning, but on-premise products. We can suit all your different needs. So now you might have, different solutions installed, and then you might be having some energy-saving programs that you're running. So what's next? So actually, today I'm very proud to be introducing SEC Building Portfolio to you. So why do you need a portfolio view? Because you have so many buildings, you have so many energy-saving projects, but you don't have one place to understand your ROI. You remember we have one of the slides saying ROI is very important? So building portfolio actually is using an international protocol called IPMVP. So it actually does measurement and verification of your energy project. So you can imagine you'll be having a baseline energy that we create for you. So for this protocol, actually we do not measure your saving. We measure what? We do measure your energy use. So based on your energy use, we analyze what will be your energy saving. So we come up with a baseline. The baseline is dynamic. It's not like last year we spent 1 million. That is our baseline. The baseline will be changing. And why do we need that? Remember, again, we do not measure your saving. We measure your energy use. So why is it needed? Imagine your shopping mall or your building would have different routines or non-routines events happening. So it could be, the routine things like this year working days compared to last year's working days, this year's season compared to last year's seasons, and then the ambient temperature. These are the routine adjustment that we will be doing to your baseline. So we will adjust based on, this year and last year, and then we will compare, we'll adjust it before we give you a baseline. And also, the second thing is, we will be looking into non-routine events. So let's say your shopping mall will be hosting a concert, which doesn't happen now, but, let's say it does have a concert, for 10 nights, and then for these 10 nights, you need to run for extra hours. These are non-routine adjustments. So imagine looking into the chart. There's a baseline, it's pretty fixed, and then it looks, compared to actual, it looks like you spend a lot of energy. But after we have all these adjustments, then your energy, it's comparable again. So with that, with CLP building portfolio, as you can see on the graph, the blue line is your actual energy prediction. So we're predicting how much energy you're saving. That is your saving baseline. And comparing with that, how much energy are you actually consuming? So the green bar and the red bar. If you achieve your energy saving, it will be green. If you don't achieve, it will be red. And most importantly, building portfolio, don't just track your energy consumption project. Electricity. It can be water, it can be biofuel. As far as you have the data point, we'll be able to track it all in one place. So what's next? If you look into, now I have IPMVP, I track my projects, I have technology, what to do next? What I want to show you here is no matter what you are trying to do, it could be, I think I have data, I think I have a fancy system, I manage everything really well. All you have to do, all you need to start to think about now, it's your MNV, your measurement and verification, and we can help you with that. So just to summarize, you might be having some RE projects, like renewable energy projects happening to, make your building greener. You might be having some energy efficiency technology to help you improve your energy consumption. If after doing all these, you can't be achieving, or reducing your carbon emission, then you might consider offsetting your carbon with, carbon credits. So these are the options, but, what really is at the heart of the future green building after you offset, after you have different technology, after you have digitalization? What's next? The most important thing, I think, from what I see in the market is change management. Sadly, the industry is getting old and people are resistant to change. So if we don't think about change today, we can't change tomorrow. So what I want to call to action today is we would like to introduce you to the CLP Innovation InnoTech Hub. So what happened is this is more like a backbone of all different alliances. If your building would like to go green and you don't know how to, join our innovation think tank. So with this, actually, we'll be able to provide you with different products that you can trial. We'll be exchanging information on the latest technology, and hopefully, we can all go green and be sustainable together, and we'll be enabling you in your journey. Thank you for listening to me. If you have questions, you can contact us.
Thank you, Serena. And before we move on to the Q&A section, just a gentle reminder, if you have any more questions that you would like to ask Serena, feel free to click the question mark icon on the top right corner of your screen. Select Q&A sections, type your questions inside message box. Remember to click the start chat to submit your questions. So now let me start with some questions for Serena. Is there any criteria to run the measurement and verification for projects?
Yes, I think the only criteria really is to start to get some data points. It can be your previous energy consumption. If it's a new building, you have to make sure that you are starting to collect some data. But it really doesn't matter. Even if it's a new building, we can there is 4 different methods within the IPMVP framework, and we can use different methods to manage your energy baseline. So it really doesn't matter. But I think you have to have the mindset of, oh, I want to be tracking my energy. So there might be some metering, or at least you have the meter data or past data, any sort of data. But you need to think of, I have to start collecting them.
So need to have some data point is important for this process.
Yes.
But we have some audience would like to know what is the typical ROI for SEC smart building projects?
So it can range from, as short as 1 year up to 3 years, depends on, your current energy consumption, or I think very often, for example, customer, they have to change certain device to achieve greater energy. And that's not part of the energy technology that we're deploying, right? This is just like the building need to be upgraded. So it depends. But I think 1 to 3 years is pretty reasonable.
Sure, thank you, Serena. And the next question is, have you considered the effects of buildings, roof or walls for energy saving? For example, the green roof can be really helpful for the indoor temperature reduction. And regarding this, building the roofs or walls for energy saving, how do you actually evaluate the effect too?
Yes. Actually, Smart Energy Connect is focusing more on smart technology. So instead of, building material change, I think material breakthrough does play a very important role. But material breakthrough, or like, setting up a green rooftop or something like that, it has to be done with early planning. While with Smart Energy Connect technology, it can be retrofit. So you don't need to plan like 10 years ahead before I start to, build my building. I need to think about, a green roof, or like insulation, better insulation, or like it could be, a lot of technology in the market are looking into the paint that we use. How can we provide better, insulation through paints and, outer material and things like that. Those are very long term. But I think, Smart Energy Connect product, you can think a little bit more immediate effect. How can we use technology to create immediate effect?
Great. Serena, one last question from the audience is, do you have any solution deployment case study that you can share with us?
Yes. In fact, today afternoon, we will be having two of our partners to share some cases. So, for example, Building Scope, we mentioned just then in our presentation. It is about AI, predictive maintenance, and we are applying in Hong Kong Airport, for example. So we have different case study that we can further share with all the audience. But I think we'll cover it in details in the afternoon. So do come back.
Great. Thank you. Thank you once again, Serena, for the fantastic sharing.
Thank you.
And do look forward to our afternoon sharing section.
Okay, thank you.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we will take a short break for 12 minutes. We will be back with more exciting topics. So see you in a bit, and we will resume our morning section in 12 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second section of the morning section of today's symposium. Now, coming up next, we have Kelvin Lee, Director of Strategy and Business Development of Schneider Electric Hong Kong. He's going to present to us digitalization throughout the building life cycle, from design to operation and maintenance. Before I pass the time to Kelvin, a reminder for everyone, we will have the Q&A section after Kelvin's sharing. So if you have any question for Kelvin, please click the question mark icon on the top right corner of your screen. Select Q&A sections under drop-down menu. Type your questions inside the message box. Remember to click Start Chat to submit your questions. Now, I think it's time for me to pass the time to Kelvin to start his sharing with us. Kelvin, please.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for a very good introduction, and good morning, everyone. Could see a lot of good friends here and a lot of audiences from different trades of life. And today, this topic is about digitization throughout the building of life cycle, from design to O&M. Okay, so here is the agenda. So in the next 25 minutes, first I will introduce our company, and then we talk about the life cycle of the buildings, and then talk about some digitization tools like BIM, and also some cloud-based and IoT-enabled analytics, and then draw the conclusion. Before I start, I would like to introduce myself first. Actually, I came from CLP. I could see a lot of good friends here, no matter it's on-site or online. So you can see, I left CLP around 10 years ago, and I spent around 11 years at CLP. I joined CLP at year 2000, and I joined as a trainee and power systems and Max, and then a commercial group. Here you could see the picture. Yeah, it's exactly 10 years ago in March, and it was taken in a BPBS, Black Point Power Station, when I was in a commercial group. A lot of good friends, a lot of good memories. So can't imagine. And right now, I came back to CLP in another role actually to speak. So it's my honor to speak at CLP in this time. A lot of good friends actually asked me before this symposium, they asked me what I did over the past 10 years. So I would like to spend around 30 minutes, 30 seconds, so 30 minutes on this topic, but 30 seconds on what I did over the past 10 years, so to show you, I was not captured by UFO. And 10 years ago, I left CLP for my MBA at London Business School. It's a 2-year program, and after I graduate, I joined Poulton & Partners in London. If you're from commercial group or LNG projects, you know Poulton & Partners, very specialized in LNG and gas. And after I quit Poulton & Partners, what I did, I went to Harvard for my MBA in Master in Public Administration. It's a 1-year program, and then I came back to Hong Kong to join the Lantau Group. A lot of people here know White Thomas, right? Yeah, so here's the managing partner of Lantau Group. It's 1.5 years, and afterwards I joined Aviation and then Schneider Electric. So that's my history over the past 10 years. You can see my career is like an electron, and then molecule, LNG and gas, and then come back to electron. But these two electrons are very different. The first electron, when I was at CLP, is like energy, is an electron as an energy. And then afterwards, right now I'm a Schneider Electric, it's electron as information. So these are two different things. And every change in my life is like a career switching to me. So it's a very simple introduction about myself. Now, introduce Schneider. Need to talk about my company because a lot of people will ask, okay, are you a German company? No, we are a French company. First, to be very clear, talk about our revenue first. We made 25 billion euros in the past 1 year. The largest market of us, what is it? Is in the Asia Pacific now. Although we are a French company, although we are a European company, but the lion's share of our revenue came from Asia Pacific, and it's also the growing market. How many people we have? It's around 130,000 people, over 100 countries around the world. How about the revenue breakdown? We have 2 major business units. First is energy management, accounts for around 3/4 of our revenue. Another 1/4 is from our industrial automation. So, and then here is the history, 4 steps. Actually, it's in line with the mega trends of the world over the past nearly 200 years. First, 185 years ago, we started in France, in Paris, as a steel company, steel manufacturer. Why? Because it's the industrial revolution in the British Empire. Okay, a lot of people at that time need steel. When we enter the 20th century, because of the invention of electricity, then we make our first transformation from a steel company to an electricity equipment supplier. But around 20 years ago, because of the invention of our computer or the very rapid developments of the IT world, we made another switching. It's called energy management and automation. Yeah, we tap into the computing power. And over the past 10 years, then a lot of people talk about Industry 4.0. So we make the 4th transformation. Okay, we talk about digital transformation. Throughout the past 185 years, we made a lot of acquisitions. So that's the growth model of Schneider Electric, and it's also studied in Harvard Business School. And here is the last slide about the introduction about our company. We place a lot of emphasis on environmental protection and also sustainability. For example, half of our revenue draw from digital and energy-related business. And we also made a very huge, ambitious sustainability commitment. By 2025, it means 4 years later, we need to be carbon neutral. It means that we need to reduce 800 million tons of carbon in the next 4 years. And by the end of this decade, 2030, so we will be net zero, okay? So this will be our very ambitious sustainability commitments. That's the company introduction, and I hope you enjoy this. And now we come to the core of this presentation is about the buildings. Here is the very high-level helicopter view about my presentation, buildings of the future. So what I talk about is, first, I will talk about the building life cycle, how many different stages, and what are the key stakeholders in the buildings. And the second one is the lifespan of a building, around 30 years, but the performance will decrease. It means that we will have more opportunities for value engineering. And then how we can do so. Digitization is a very good way. How we can capitalize on those technologies like BIM, IoT, cloud computing to do this. This will be my presentation. Now, very brief introduction about the life cycle of a building. As you can see, the first few years on design and then construction. But you can see, if I talk about lifespan of a building is 30 years, then 25 years will be more on O&M. It also means that O&M will be more correlated to our people. And also, the operating cost, OPEX, of O&M will be much larger. And later I will give you a figure, okay? Larger than the design and construction. If we need to do value engineering, if we need to improve the performance, then the O&M part, we really need to do so, okay? Yeah, here we show you a different stakeholder, as I said before. The first one is the consultants. They are more engaged in the early two stages, like design and construction of a building. And the second one will be contractors, more on the construction. And the third will be the owner or facility managers, will be over the whole O&M stage. You can see what are the key features, not many overlaps, for example. Okay, the first one you can see, okay? So communication may be a problem. And the second thing is, very classical economic problem is called principal-agent problem. It means that the agents will act at the best interest of themselves rather than the principal. Of course, I believe all the consultants and contractors are very professional. But at the same time, we also need to take care of this because it's inherent in the human nature. That's the problem that we need to solve. And what's the problem? As you can see from the left-hand side, this graph, you can see the performance will decrease over time across different stages of the life cycle. For example, the design one, of course, is flat. Everything is perfect on the paper. When it enters construction, because of the site defects, site constraints, then the performance will decrease. Right after it enters the O&M stage, then the performance will decrease quite rapidly. Yeah. So what are the problems? For example, your lack of the project management, your lack of communication among all the key stakeholders, and how can we improve the performance? What's the target of us? It will be on the right-hand side, as we can see. That's our target, our ambition is try to maintain the performance of the building, okay, uniformly over the entire life cycle. And what can we do so is digital technology. For example, we can use it to do the energy saving, to maintain the reliability, to maintain our comfort, to do the retro commissioning. A lot of things we can do to capitalize on digital technologies to help us. Now, if I compare these two graphs, okay, the first one minus the second one, you can see will be the right-hand side, this graph, right? So this will be the value we can add. We call this value engineering. As you can see, the value will increase over time. And how can we do so? Two things we can do in different stages of life, okay, is the first one, on the construction side, we can use BIM. A lot of people will talk about BIM. How can we use BIM to enhance the value of our buildings? I will explain later. And the second will be the O&M stage. You can see huge potential of value engineering, a lot of value we can do. So we can use the IoT-enabled and cloud-based analytics for you to do so. So, BIM, let's talk about BIM. Now, give you some statistics before. McKinsey in 2015, they said that, okay, we surveyed 22 industries. One of them is building industry. What's the ranking? It's 21st. Not the first, 21st out of 22 industries. It means that we have a lot of improvement to do in the digitization of the building industry. And the second thing, how about operation efficiency? Just 40%. Okay, a lot of inefficient in the building industries during the design stage. And also the third one, how about the data efficiency? 96% of data is waste. We generate a lot of data in the construction and design stage and operation stage, but most of the data will go unused. So a lot of inefficiency. So we need to tap into those data to help us to do the value engineering. Now, the first one is BIM. BIM, a lot of people will say that, yeah, AutoCAD. Exactly. When I was at university time, like this 20-something years ago, we do the AutoCAD. It's the origin of the BIM, 2D drawing, and then 3D drawing. A lot of animations, you can shake, you can rotate, right? But it's not enough. So in the past 10 years, you can see a lot of improvement in the BIM technologies. For example, it will be equipped with more and more functions and other tools to help you to do the forecast, projection, okay, a lot of different kinds of simulations. But the top stage is you need to have a very integrated platform to give you the 5D, not just 3D, and also to give you the single platform of truth that you can have. And that's the value of the BIM. As I said before, different stakeholders through the design and construction stages, you will rely on different sources of truth for you to proceed the project management. That's lack of communication. That's why you need this. Okay. Oh, sorry, a little out of control. Okay, yeah. No problem at all. So 5D, what is 5D? 3D, we know that, right? It's the space. Okay, 5D, it means that it's 4D is the time, and then 5D is the cost. So we add 2 more dimensions. Of course, some people will say, okay, we have 10D or even more. So it depends on how many dimensions or matrices you need to add to measure the performance. So with 5D, we can do a lot of different things for you to do the better project management, simulation, projection, or optimization, whatever you can do. Second thing is a lot of stakeholders. Okay. Yeah. A little bit out of control, but no worries, I can control this. Single source of truth, a lot of different stakeholders on the same platform, BIM platform. So there will be no confusion, no misunderstanding. Everyone is on the same page. And that's the thing that BIM can add value to you. Oh, every time I click one, it will jump, but no worries. Okay, yeah. And this is the hierarchy, as you can see, about the data. The lowest layer is the data. It means nothing, although data is the king, but if you don't draw any insight from the data, it's useless. So how we can refine the data, 4 levels, from data to information, with some meaning behind, and then to the knowledge, okay? With more meaning, you can know the know-how. And the highest layer is the wisdom. Just like human beings, we can think strategically. We can make decisions, and that's the wisdom. As you can see, we need AI on the wisdom part. We've already very well developed knowledge, information, and data. The next stage is to incorporate the AI into the model and know why. As you can see, this also aligns with the civilization of human beings. And how we can do so? On top of AI, we can also add a lot of smart sensors, okay, to measure no matter what, like the space, like the temperature, humidity, a lot of environmental indicators you can measure, no matter it's about the human, the machine, the materials, a lot of different things you can just measure, and it's automatic input to eliminate any human errors. So you can input it in real time. You don't really need to tolerate some time for the human input, or it's also prone to errors. And then you can add with the visualization technologies like the IR, VR to help the stakeholders better visualize the site conditions, no matter it's on the resource or materials or plant or site, anything. Okay, you can also do this with the VR technologies. It's very, very intelligent. And the last thing, you can also add with the digital twin. So what is a digital twin? It's just like a digital copy of a physical object. So a lot of people will rely on digital twins to do these simulations. Okay? If I have a piece of asset, I have lots of data. I know its performance. If I want to change, I want to do some change or to add something. What will happen next? So that's what the digital twin can help you. There are lots of benefits. For example, I just mentioned a few. It can shorten the site construction time, your cost, and also increase the quality with the use of the digital twin. So based on the BIM, as you can see, a lot of technologies can add value or based on the BIM to provide more benefits to our site management during the construction stage. And then next, I will talk about the O&M stage. Now, as you can see, I mentioned this before. Throughout the life cycle, what will be the life cycle cost of a building? If I divide it into the design and construction and also O&M, you can see it's the first hill on the left-hand side. It's around 20 to 40%. What it means, 20 to 40% of the life cycle cost is incurred during the design and construction stage, but 60 to 80% will be incurred on the O&M stage. As you can see, a lot of cost. It also means that a lot of value or benefit we can get from the O&M stage. That's the meaning of this graph. And to give you some more figures, it's like a wild animal, sorry. Okay, yeah, the pointer is so interesting. Some more statistics, not just the cost. How about sustainability? Buildings, they emit 40% of our carbon emissions, so quite a lot. And then how about resiliency? You know what? Every year we have more than 300 disasters over the world. It also means that every day we have one disaster, no matter it's typhoon, earthquake, volcano, eruption, or other things, okay, over the world. Next, efficiency. 30% of our energy is waste in buildings, okay? For example, in Chile, it's the most energy-consuming one. And next, people centricity. You know what? We spend 90% of our lifetime in buildings. It also means that we are highly correlated to the building's performance. If the buildings are good, to provide you very comfortable environments and well-beings, of course, it will be very good for you to perform higher. Okay? No matter it's for you to live, to work, to play, to rest. Okay? So we are highly correlated to the indoor performance of the buildings. Okay. Now, I will call these four matrices the key values in the buildings of the future. Sustainable. Our buildings must be sustainable, use less energy, and emit less carbon. The second thing is resilience. Resilience can be physical and also can be digital. Physical, I know you already know, okay, back in around 10,000 years ago. So buildings or our shelters will provide us this kind of physical resiliency against the wild animals, against the natural disasters. And then right now we are also talking about cybersecurity. Is another space, okay? And the third one, highly efficient. Of course, energy efficiency. But the second thing is, we also need to remotely control and manage our buildings. So we don't really need to get back to the sites to manage our buildings, especially during the COVID time. We've already come to the new normal, okay? We have to work remotely. So WFH, work from home. Whatever, work from hotel, work from hospital, whatever, okay? You can manage or do your work remotely, and that's the future buildings need to provide you. The last thing, we will call this is a very essential element in the buildings of the future, people-centric. We need buildings, first, to provide us very comfortable environment, and the second thing is to help you think and make strategic decisions. And it will be more human-like. It will be like your friend, like your soul. It's not just a physical asset. And that will be the buildings of the future. People right now call it smart buildings, but in our Schneider language, we call it buildings of the future. It's just like it has a soul. It knows you well. Okay? Now, what are the four, you can see the four key values, but it's underpinned by one thing. It's the mega trend of the world, is the digitization. So I would say digital will disrupt efficiency and sustainability of the world. You can see quite some figures on the right-hand side. It's about IoT, about big data, about AI. So the increase not just double, okay? But we can triple or 5 times or 6 times. And here is the eco-structure and that our company will provide you. Actually, if you study IT or computer engineering, you know this kind of infrastructure is like we divide the IoT architecture into 3 layers. The in plain language, the bottom one is called hardware. Just like you know about Schneider Electric, we have transformers, switchgears, and bus bars. Okay, those are the hardwares. And the second layer will be the software. BMS and EMS. So, okay, and this will be our control. And the third layer will be our analytics. Okay, it will help you think. It will analyze the data. Okay, so that's the way that we go. And we have 4 major advisors to help you to do or add value to you in different matrices. For example, our building advisors will do better management for you as an advisor to monitor the critical power assets like the equipment, like the transformers, switchgears, bus bars, okay, which are very critical to the health of power systems. And then power advisor to monitor the power qualities like the voltages and harmonics. And second, and the last one is the workplace advisor about the well-beings, about the occupants, of people flow and things like this. And last thing I would like to say is we talk about the Internet of Things. I will try to step up. I would say that's the Internet of everything in the future, not just the Internet of Things. So IoT and cloud will be the bedrock. Like it will underpin VR, virtual reality, and then digital twin, as I explained before, and blockchain to enable peer-to-peer energy trading and other commodities. AI help you think, and then automations, take actions, robotics. So it will be the future. If I can say the future, the buildings or any assets will be global. Okay, you can monitor, you can work remotely. And second thing, it will be more agile. It's real-time data. You can make the decision quickly. And smart and auto, it adds a lot of value to our human beings, and it's people-centric, and that's the thing, that the buildings will help you. So I will call this technologies for the access everything. If I can also call it further, it's global, it's everywhere. Agile, every moment, it's real time. And smart and auto is for everyone. So we have everything, everywhere, every moment, and for everyone. So it will be our future, and that's the power of Internet of Everything. I know this time's up. It's just a conclusion that, so in the future, our values should offer 4 big values: sustainable, resilient, hyper-efficient, and people-centric, and a lot of value we can add during the design, construction, and O&M stage. And the future will be digitization and innovation. So, and I know it's time's up, but I just want to say the last sentences. Okay, we are talking about the Internet of Things, but in the future, it will be the Internet of Everything, and it will be our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kelvin, for the comprehensive sharing with us. Due to time constraint, we may have only time for 1 question, and we have received a few questions, and we picked the question that we would like to ask Kelvin. How does a company go about estimating the ROI for digitalization?
Okay, a lot of people, customers will ask us, how can we measure the ROI? I think there will be 3 stages, if I can divide it in here, or try to put it in a very structured manner. The first thing is define your motivation, your ambition, your goal. What you want to do is you want to save your energy. You want to enhance the reliability, or you want to enhance the comfortability. IQ, things like this. Define your goal. And the second thing is define the matrices. For example, energy saving. Okay, how many kilowatt hours you want to save? Reliability, the reduction in downtime. So you will have a very clear matrices. And the third thing, it will be how we can do so. What technologies, okay, IoT, cloud, or other things can help you to do this kind of energy management. And then we will, as a Schneider Electric, we will say we have a customer success team, very professional, to help you to do so. We have reference cases all around the world, overseas, so we will have a lot of knowledge and data to help you to do this kind of ROI estimation and measurement.
Thank you so much, Kelvin. And now, once again, thank you, Kelvin, for sharing with us. And here wraps up our 4 keynote section for today. Thank you, Kelvin.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Moving on to the next keynote sharing, we will be focusing on the topic target setting and decarbonization pathway. And we would like to introduce our speaker for this topic is Ms. Cindy Yu, Director of Projects of Reset Carbon. A reminder to all our audience once again, if you have any questions that you would like to ask Cindy, remember to click the question mark icon, then on the top right hand corner there, and select Q&A sections under the drop down menu. Type your questions in the message box. Remember to click Start Chat to submit your questions. Now, without further ado, I'll pass the time to Cindy.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So first of all, thank you for having me here. Today I have a little bit of a tricky topic because my focus is much more about the different types of targets we tend to see what corporates are setting. And as you can see as well, in terms of the framework, in terms of trends that we're seeing is that it's getting more and more stringent. So this is just something I would like to focus on today and to really explain roughly what kind of pathway you can follow based on what kind of target framework you're following as well. So just a really quick agenda. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction of us as a company, Reset Carbon, and then I want to go into the reason why there are urgencies and drivers to act. And before we go into, demystifying some of the carbon targets, because again, like I said before, it's a little bit confusing. And then afterward, I would like to go through the mitigation pathways as well. So just quickly about Reset. We've actually been in Hong Kong since 2009, so we've been around for quite a while. For sustainability consulting, I think it's quite amazing that we've been in Hong Kong for over 12 years now. In terms of what kind of work we do as well, we do a lot of the sustainability strategy. As our company name is Reset Carbon, so we do a lot of decarbonization strategy as well for corporates. On top of kind of building strategy, I think what's really important as well is not purely just building a strategy, but really about action plan development. So at the end of the day, you can have a beautiful strategy, but you can't implement it. And I think that's where we really differentiate as a company, is we also help our companies with implementation as well. We also do resource efficiency kind of assessment and energy assessment, knowledge transfer and stakeholder engagement, as well as project management. But what really differentiates us as a company is the fact that we do use a collaborative empowerment approach. It's what I like to call how we work with our clients. So at the end of the day, how we see sustainability is really about people collaborating together, and the fact that we also don't use really a cookie cutter approach to consulting as well. So we really tailor our services based on the client needs. And I think the empowerment part is important because it's also about empowering, the corporate, my client's team as well, so that they can do the thing and they can do it well. And so just overall kind of the client portfolio, we've been really lucky today, and in terms of kind of the clients we've been working with and, really helping them on their carbon and reduction strategy as well. So we tend to co-develop a lot of the solutions with our client to make sure that it really meets your needs, because at the end of the day, you understand your operation the best, and we're not going to understand it better than you. So it's really about co-development here in terms of creation of strategy. And what we've actually worked on as well is kind of going beyond carbon, is also kind of touching on the other area, for example, like water, supply chain, and also kind of waste as well are the key areas we focus in. And so, okay, enough about the company, which is the boring part, I believe. So now what I want to explain to you is why a company is increasingly setting aggressive carbon targets. So what I love about these two charts, if it works on your screen, which I hope it does, is it's a little bit slow on my screen. But basically, what I wanted to show you is the impact of climate change in terms of global temperature, as well as the CO2 concentration. And what you can see is that the circle in the left and the right is just keep increasing, right? So actually, right now, we're already at 1 degree of warming. We're not even looking at kind of less than 1 degree. We're already at 1 degree warming. And therefore, what we tend to see as well is because of the extreme weather events that's been happening as well, we're seeing that there are more and more actually the heat waves, for example, or kind of like the wildfires we're seeing are also creating really a collective commitment to act on climate change. Climate change doesn't feel like something which is very far away. It feels like it's right here, and people want action now. And what we tend to see as well is something I'll keep mentioning is the 1.5 degree. Okay, so right now, if we're looking at where we're at in terms of the current policy, it is more than likely that it's going to take us to 3 degrees. Okay, this is something we really, really want to avoid. But right now, if we're looking at the kind of policy, it's taking us to 3 degrees. But if we know what we really need to do in order for us to actually hit what we call 1.5, which is considered as the area where we want to get to, it's considered as safe for us, well, really avoiding the most adverse impact of climate change, what we really need to do is to get to 1.5 degree. And what does that mean? It means that we need to get to net zero by 2050. And right now, looking at where we're at, unfortunately, the world is actually on track to exceed 1.5 warming by 2030 at the very earliest. So there's a lot that needs to be done right now in order for us to make sure that we don't hit 2 degrees and in order for us to hit the 1.5 degree. And what you can see as well is what's clear from the IPCC report is that climate-related risks, unfortunately, at 2 degree is much worse than 1.5 degree. And you can also see in the chart as well is the local implications. So obviously, there's going to be extreme hot nights, which we're already feeling. And also, there's going to be more risk of, for example, stronger typhoon as well, and et cetera, et cetera. So basically, what we really want to do is to hit 1.5 degree. And from that as well, given the kind of like climate change impact being much more visible than ever before, we're also seeing that there are collective commitments to urgently act on climate change. And we're seeing this everywhere. And since the Paris Agreement, in fact, even for me as a consultant, it's been really, really hard to just keep on track on what's happening in this space. And we're also seeing like businesses are really pulling their weight as well. So obviously we've got the EP100, EV100, RE100. We also have We Mean Business, which is really a coalition of businesses wanting to act on climate change. And then we also have the science-based target, which I will address later. And we're also getting a lot more investor pressure than ever before as well. And I think all that pressure is really good in a way that because it pushes us into areas where historically we probably wouldn't be setting such aggressive carbon target without this pressure. But at the same time, it's also a little bit tricky for you to, I would say, even navigate, even for a sustainability practitioner, especially when we start talking about loads of different terms like CDP, TCFD, and GRISB. But essentially what it does is all these businesses are actually, all these kind of like associations are also pulling together to create those collective commitment as well in order for us to act on climate change. And so obviously great news for us in this sector is that we're finally getting some really clear signal as well from China and Hong Kong that they're looking to achieve carbon neutrality. For China, it'll be 2060, and for Hong Kong, it'll be 2050. And we also know that there will be a climate action plan coming out also in Q2 this year as well. So we're very excited to see this. In terms of what we're expecting in the climate action plan, there's a lot of unknowns right now. But it was mentioned in the policy address when Carrie Lam actually made the announcement of the target that there will be a zero carbon. Within that policy address, it was mentioned that there are few commitments within kind of like doing the carbon neutrality target. And part of it will be zero carbon energy, decarbonization technology, and also really kind of enhancing energy efficiency in existing buildings and also new buildings, the zero carbon vehicles, as well as green finance, which I believe there has been some amazing movement in this space as well in the last year or two, and also a large-scale waste-to-energy facilities. However, right now, we still don't really know what's going to be in the action plan. And we're very excited to see this, and we can't wait to actually get to go through the whole action plan and see how this would actually impact on our clients as well on their own carbon targets. So next, this is the techie bit. So demystifying carbon targets. What you've seen in the market so far is loads of different targets. So you've got carbon neutrality, you've got net zero, you've got net positive, you've got even net negative. And what do they all mean? So before I go into really explaining what they mean, I want to explain, first of all, some really basic terms in carbon accounting. And I hope that I can keep you focused here. Scope 1 and Scope 2 basically means that emissions that are coming from the company operation. So you've got Scope 2, which is the easiest one to understand, and that's basically emissions from purchased electricity. You also have Scope 1 as well, so those are kind of direct emissions from your operation. So what we like to call that is basically emissions from your own operation. But increasingly, because actually if you look at, let's say, a company's carbon footprint, the overall kind of profile, what we tend to see as well is Scope 3, what we call as company value chain. So emissions from your value chain actually do make up a huge chunk of your overall footprint. And to date, that has not been a focus. And when we talk about the value chain, it's also about upstream as well as downstream as well. So for example, if we think about a real estate company, we might be looking at embodied carbon in construction materials. As you can imagine, steel will be a huge part of that emission, right? So that's why going forward is not purely about reducing your emissions in your own operation, but it's also about your value chain as well. And so next, okay, this the writing is a little bit small on the screen, but I think what I wanted to explain here is increasingly because of science-based targets, it's much harder than before to actually greenwash your way through having just a operational efficiency target. And I feel that given the kind of movement as well in target setting, and that there are more and more increasingly stringent framework on how to define what is a good target versus what is a bad target, you actually have to be navigating very carefully in which target you're going to end up setting. So just quickly on the science-based target. First of all, this refers to basically a target that is in line with basically the scale of reduction needed in order for us to basically hit below 2 or 1.5 degree. Apologies. And what's really good about the science-based target is that it actually has a validation mechanism. So you can't just say, I'm setting a science-based target and I have a science-based target. No, you can't do that because you also need your target to be approved as well. As mentioned before as well, if you set a science-based target, basically it means that you are in line with 1.5 degree. So basically you're in line with climate science, which is great. At the next level, we also have something called a science-based target net zero. And currently, that is actually in draft. So this is still going through consultation at the moment. But this target, what's really different about this target is that it is a value chain target in order for us to hit 1.5 degree. So what I mentioned before about going beyond your operation, this one requires you to actually set a target beyond your own operation, and all your value chain emissions will need to be included in this target. And in terms of the validation mechanism, at the moment we believe it's in development, and this will also be in line 1.5 degree. But next, we start thinking about the other terms like carbon neutrality and net zero. And basically, they all kind of head to the same direction, is that, it's more about compensating for your emissions so that you become net zero carbon, basically. But frankly, there is no framework on these terms. So at the moment, there are a lot of kind of like, it's quite ambiguous what it means when it comes to a company setting carbon neutral target. We believe that they mean well, but at the same time, it can't really be defined as per like science-based targets. In terms of validation mechanism, there isn't such a thing in place at the moment, and it may not also be in line with 1.5 degree. I think I'm having the same problem as you. Okay, so just quickly on the boundary and the emission sources as well. So when it comes to science-based target and science-based target net zero target, it's usually set at the corporate level. But when it comes to, let's say, a carbon neutrality target, it could be at the asset level. It's really difficult to tell what is the target boundary. When it comes to the emission sources, SBT requires you to set a target for your scope 1 and scope 2 and any material scope 3. So that's what we mean by value chain emissions. And only the material ones. So basically there is a rule, there's a threshold you need to hit. So let's say if your overall emissions for your entire company in terms of scope 3 is actually over 40% of your overall footprint, which includes scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, then you will need to set a target for scope 3 as well. When it comes to the science-based target net zero, it's all of it. You don't have a choice. Regardless of how material, how immaterial, you will need to quantify all your scope 3 emissions, and you would need to set a target for all of that. In terms of the net zero carbon target and the carbon neutrality, in terms of kind of the boundary and emission sources, it's really up to the company what they choose. There isn't really a universal framework at the moment on this, so it's a little bit difficult for us to kind of evaluate. Especially compare a target from one company to another is really hard for us to do so. So overall, just the key dimensions in corporate target. Obviously, we need to look at what's in scope. So what are you including in your target boundary? And this, we're also observing that in terms of what target you're setting now, it will be also, you'll be expecting increasing scrutiny from your stakeholders as well, because now there are frameworks in place versus what it used to be, let's say even 5 years ago, when your target cannot really be compared to another company. So the scrutiny is going to increase in this. And also it's about kind of what you're including as kind of source of emissions as well. But also after that, after you kind of define your target boundary, it's also about your mitigation strategy as well as the time frame. So for example, even your base year will now be in increasing scrutiny from client stakeholders as well. So I think just to give you an example of some of the science-based targets set by the local corporates, so we also have Swire Properties and also Swire Coca-Cola as well. The Swire Properties target is actually in line with the 2 degrees Celsius, and I believe that they're also looking to go in line with 1.5 going forward. But the Swire Coca-Cola is already in line with 1.5. As you can see, these targets are quite aggressive. And in terms of the base year as well, they're quite recent as well. And the fact that they're also looking into the value chain. For example, you have Swire Properties. They also have a very heavy tenants engagement program as well. So it really is going beyond just purely about energy efficiency. So this is just kind of what I wanted to share with you as some of the examples of the science-based targets set by local corporates. At the next level, the term mitigation might seem a bit like, what is that? So basically, these are basically some of the options you can consider. If you're going to set different targets, what are considered as kind of the options that you can use to actually mitigate against the emissions. So abatement is very simple. Abatement is basically reducing energy demand or energy efficiency. So even though the word sounds complicated, it actually isn't. In terms of compensation, okay, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. Okay, so in terms of compensation, basically it's like buying offset credits, right? So high quality offsets in order to compensate the emissions you're creating in your value chain or your direct operation as well. And neutralization, this is something I won't focus too much attention on today, but neutralization is about removal of the carbon emissions. And we know that from what we can see as well in the sector is that for some of these sectors that are in what we call hard to abate sectors, so for example, like steel or construction, we know that it's more than likely that even by 2050, they will not be able to actually abate all the emissions, you know, through existing technologies. And they would need to look into neutralization, which includes carbon removal, in order for us to get to net zero. But right now, the technology is still very, very immature, and I think it's not really proven at scale. So our focus is much more on abatement still. And at the next level, one thing to really bear in mind as well when you set any kind of target as well is looking at mitigation hierarchy. Because what we're seeing is that increasingly you will also get, you will have to be very careful in how much you choose to, let's say, offset versus what you choose to abate. And there are more and more attention being focused in this right now. So it's really important whenever we recommend a client, we always say, follow the mitigation hierarchy. And that's very simple. It's very simple as like, you know, like waste management. First thing you try and do is to avoid emissions. So if you don't create the waste in the first place, well, you have less problem to solve, right? Because you're not emitting emissions. So simple. At the next level is about reducing. So it's about energy efficiency, about looking into renewables as well as off-site renewables as options as well. And finally, only for the what we call as residue emissions that you cannot abate, you should look into the compensation or the neutralization options. So this is just some examples of, for example, under abatement, you know, with energy demand reduction, energy efficiency, and also electrification coupled with the grid decarbonization and the on-site renewables and fuel switch as well. So basically, this is for you to kind of reduce or even eliminate or even prevent sources of emissions in the first place. So again, obviously, this is the way to go. In terms of compensation, bear in mind that when we look at the Science-Based Target Initiative net zero definition, you actually can't use compensation, so buying carbon offsets as a way to hit your target, but it's optional. So you can still choose to go beyond and say that, no, we are going to compensate for our emissions, and this is optional, and this is recommended. So offset is still a very good way for you to also reduce your emissions. And what's really good potentially about compensation measures as well is the fact that there are a lot of co-benefits around, you know, carbon offsets. It's not purely just from, you know, environmental attribute perspective, but it's also about, for example, when we think about reforestation as well, or afforestation, kind of like having those offsets could also benefit the local community, and potentially it can also move certain funds as well, so mobilize certain finances for development country to actually go for greener technologies. So all in all, compensation is also an option you can think about as well. So just to finalize, abatement, as you can see, for whichever framework you're looking at, is really accepted across the board. So everyone always say abatement should really be the key focus. And we know that a lot of the time when we work with our clients as well, we know that they've already done an awful lot in energy efficiency. But when we talk about science-based target and also net zero as well, this is almost like a way that how decisions are being made in an organization will need to be transformed. It really isn't what we're used to, which is purely on operational gain or cost efficiency or cost savings. So there needs to be some kind of transition as well. And we know it's hard to engage stakeholders, especially internally, to get them excited on this. And that's why a lot of the time when we work on this project with our clients, it's less so about what technologies are there, because a lot of the time they already know these technologies, but it's much more about getting people on board, getting people understand what these terms actually mean. Even the term sustainability or decarbonization is actually quite alienating because it's confusing, right? So I think it's really about kind of bringing people on board as well. And when it comes to compensation, as you can see with Science-Based Target and Science-Based Target Initiative Net Zero, it's not accepted, unfortunately. But the thing is, even for the Science-Based Target Net Zero, it does allow for offsets as an optional thing as well in the meantime while we transition into net zero. So it's still accepted as you're allowed to do this. And in terms of the net zero carbon targets, and finally for carbon neutrality, is free for all pretty much. You can do whatever you want because there is no universal framework for this. And that is the risk, because we know that stakeholders are already closing in on these definitions. So what we tend to do as well, just a final message, is future-proof your target, because your target is about your future, and if you don't future-proof it now, this is going to be your risk going forward.
Thank you so much, Cindy. And now, before we move to Q&A section, definitely, if there's any burning questions or questions that you would like to ask Cindy, remember to now press the question mark icon on the top right corner of the screen, then select the question and answer sections under the drop-down menu. Type your questions inside the message box. Remember to click the button to send your questions to us. So now I think we have a few questions lining up for Cindy's section. First question is, what are the impacts of COVID-19 on carbon emissions?
Well, obviously, it mostly went down. I think in theory, this is good for a lot of corporate targets, but that's only if you're setting an absolute target. So when we're talking about targets, it's also the target type you're choosing as well. So you have intensity target, which means that is usually normalized with a specific metric that is linked to your business. In that case, as you can imagine, the ratio is going to be all over the place. So for companies like that, they may not benefit from the absolute reduction. But when we think about absolute reduction, I think basically, yes, they will probably, especially most sectors except a few, would probably be seeing some kind of reduction in their emissions. But at the same time, I think what we're seeing in terms of this year as well is even like association, even if, for example, they might have a program that is linked to carbon reduction, this year is actually considered as void in some of these association frameworks as well. So just bear this in mind, even though we're likely to see the reduction, but we're also expecting this to go up in the short run as well.
Thank you, Cindy. One more question is regarding also the carbon emission. Well, actually, carbon emission is definitely unavoidable when we develop economies. What tips do you have for the local companies when they also want to try to minimize the carbon intensity?
So if it's carbon intensity, I think obviously a huge part of it. I mean, if we look at kind of like the mitigation pathway as well, obviously abatement is a huge part of it. So for example, you've got like, green building. It's really about, minimizing and kind of building as green as possible. And what we're also increasingly seeing, for example, are like, super low E buildings. And we know that, the local GBC is already working on this as well with a few corporates in Hong Kong. So really building it as efficiently as possible. And I think this goes back to what Kelvin also explained previously as well. It's about understanding the energy impact based on the decisions you made at the building level when you design it, I think. And after that, it's also about, when at the operational level, it's about improving energy efficiency. And that's not purely just from plugging in a new technology in there. A lot of it is also based on behavior as well. So that has a huge part to play, I would say. And obviously after that, you also have grid decarbonization as well. When we're talking about science-based target, you're talking about much longer term. So you're talking about 2030 or even 2035 or beyond. So we're also expecting there to be improvement over grid decarbonization over time as well. And this will also be helpful, for example, if looking to electrify as well. And I think after that, obviously looking at on-site renewable as well as consider off-site renewable as part of your strategy.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cindy, for the fantastic sharing with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, now after 5 keynote sharings in the morning sections, we will come to the panel discussion section, where the topic of our panel discussion of today is bringing innovation to commercialization. And we're so honored to have invited 4 distinguished speakers come along with a panelist to host this section for us. And now I would like to invite our speakers to proceed onto the stage, and we are so honored to have them today with us. They are Engineer Andrew Young, Associate Director of Sino Innovation. We also have Engineer Dr. Anthony Lowe, Director of Corporate Customer Experience of CLP Power. Mr. Kelvin Lee, Director of Strategy and Business Development of Schneider Electric Hong Kong Limited. We also have Engineer Andrew Lau, Retro Commissioning Lead of Asia Pacific Engineer and Sustainability Services of JLL. And definitely our moderator for this panel discussion, it's Pups Abayasiri, Associate Director of Digital Products of CLP Innovation. Without further ado, I'll turn over the time to our moderator, Pups. Pups, the time is now yours.
Thank you, thank you. Earlier today, you heard a lot about strategies and technologies that we can adopt right now. What we wanted to do was actually finish the morning session to talk about how do we take some of these innovations and bring them to either commercialization or adoption. And there's no better way to do this than actually talk to a set of industry experts who are actually, in fact, shaping the industry. So there are three things that we're hoping you can take away from this. So firstly, what are some of the trends that we're seeing either in the short to medium term? And what can you do about those in terms of your decisions? Secondly, it's what are some of the projects that are happening right now and what are some of the learnings that we're getting from those? And then thirdly, what are some of the barriers that you can potentially face and how can you mitigate some of these? So I hope you enjoy the session. I'd like to, in fact, go through just a short self-introduction from our panelist members. So maybe first I'll ask Andrew Young from Sino Innovation, our Associate Director.
Hi everyone. So I head up a group in Sino called the Sino Innovation Department. We run an innovation lab, and our purpose is really to engage and bring more innovation into our operation. At the same time, we want to nurture the innovation in the property sectors in Hong Kong. So we're doing a lot of ecosystem building, engaging with startups, etc., and engaging more innovation and technology to be embraced into our operations.
Thank you. And we've got Anthony Lowe.
Okay, thanks, Pops. Good morning, everybody. I'm Anthony, and I'm the Director of Corporate Customer Experience in CP Power. I'm look after all the aspects of our business customer. So this business customer is, I think we cover a wide range from government institution or commercial and industrial building, and also include some small and medium enterprise. I'm deeply involved in formulate business strategy and also explore innovative technology on how to drive the use of this technology and the application of a smart solution to help our customers to solve their business needs and also to help them to save energy in combating climate change. So we treat ourselves as an orchestrator to look at the ecosystem of the industry and also to see whether we can help them to solve the pain point and then provide them the end-to-end solution.
Thank you, Anthony. And then we've got Kelvin Lee, who you heard from earlier.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So I had the privilege before to have a slide to introduce myself, and I'd just like to tell you what I am doing at Schneider Electric right now. So three hats. I would say the first one is to plan the strategies, how we can leverage the information technologies, the operation technologies, IoT, AI, and other technologies to add more value to our customers in terms of the energy management, asset reliability, and space efficiency, and lots of different matrices. That's the thing I need to do. The second thing is to do the how to engage the very key stakeholders throughout the whole project cycle. If you listen to my presentation before, so there are many stakeholders throughout the whole life cycle, and we need to engage them. We need to facilitate the buy-in of the digital technologies. And the second thing, I'm very happy to take up this role is to as a sustainability lead in our Schneider Electric Hong Kong office, okay, because you just saw the presentation of Cindy, and there are lots of ways we can do on reducing the carbon, on sustainability, and we have to explore different options to help our Hong Kong and even the corporate to decarbonize our carbon or emissions, and also how to make the corporation more sustainable. And that's the thing that I have to do, and I'm also very happy to do. Thank you.
And last but not least, we've got Andrew Lau from JLL.
Thank you. And my name is Andrew Lau, and I'm leading the virtual commissioning business for JL in Asia Pacific. As some of you may not know, virtual commissioning is the most cost-effective way to achieve energy efficiency by using like human intelligence as well as technologies. And we are one of the products to help our clients to achieve their ambitions in terms of energy and sustainability, such as net zero carbon.
Perfect. So what's exciting about this group is you've got experts from the property sector, utilities, and solution and service providers. So I'm also part of CLP Innovation, and one of the challenges that I go through is there's lots of different opportunities and external triggers that are happening, whether it's our pledge to be carbon neutral by 2050, whether it's our aging buildings, or the pandemic itself. So I actually wanted to ask our panelists, firstly starting with Andrew, on how do you prioritize? How do you decide which problem to work on?
Well, obviously, in the current pandemic, I think everybody's focus is on solving current problem. So we started off by addressing pain points, and we look at short-term, medium-term, long-term pain points. I mean, obviously, right now, everybody is about the air quality, it's about the pandemic, it's about having clean environment for consumers, for users, and because that is what everybody's focusing on. But those are the more shorter-term priority. The longer term, we do look at the ESG and energy usage. I think those are our longer term priorities that we do need to address from now. So we're focusing a lot. Short-term stuff, we're looking for short-term solutions. Longer term, we're looking for longer-term solutions. But persistently, I think the long-term one are the one we really need to drive. And I think the property sector as a whole, and I also look at, we have a group among the property developers called the PropTech Alliance of Hong Kong, and there's about 15 of us in the group. And all the innovation sections are looking in similar dimensions across those problems.
Okay, great. And Anthony, from a utility perspective?
Okay. As my duty is that we have to look after all the aspect of our business customer. So one of my major duty, as I mentioned before, is that we treat us as an orchestrator to help them to solve their business problem. So I think nowadays, most of the people that they look at the problem maybe very focused on those problems. But sometimes when we have to find a solution to solve a problem, maybe we overlook some of the associated issue. So the solution may not be how to solve the problem holistically. So that's why I think nowadays when we are faced to solve the problem, we find a new rate or new approach towards innovation. So what kind of thing that we have to do is that we are now using design thinking approach. So I think design thinking approach is very systematic approach. We start from the angle of customer or people-centric. So we have to look at our customers' ecosystem at the end process so that we can identify the problem. So if we use the design thinking, there are 4 major steps that we always follow. The first one is that I think very important is that we have to understand our customer need and find the pain point. And the second one is that we call ideation. Ideation is that it's the way for us to how to generating or develop some methodology to solve the problem. And the third one is that once we get the solution, so that we have to do the pilot to ensure that our idea or our solution can be worked before we deliver. And the last one is delivery. Delivery is that we have to make sure that the solution can be delivered to the market and meet our customer needs. But it's very easy to say, but I think if we have to build the capability of our colleagues to ensure that they can know about these techniques to help to solve the problem. So there's 3 pillars that we have to ensure that they have these capabilities. The first one is the culture. So we ensure that they understand about the people-centric or customer-centric mindset. And second one is that the capability, and the last one is motivation. So we arrange a lot of training courses and for our staff. So up to now, I think we have more than 50 staff that they have this capability to leverage the use of design thinking approach to help our customer to solve problem or identify if there's any smart solution or to help them to save energy to combat climate change. Yeah. Okay. This is what we do now.
Perfect. I'm glad you threw in delivery there as well. Kelvin, from Schneider's perspective.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, I really appreciate Anthony's very good point, and especially design thinking. Actually, we also have this kind of design thinking. We have another name is called the 4D approach. Okay, 4D. What are the 4Ds? The first one is to discover. It's just like Anthony said before, try to discover the pain points of our customers to understand what they need. And that's the first thing we need to do. And the second D is called define, just like Anthony's ideation. So we need to define the solutions. So we see the pain points and what should be the solutions. What are the options we can have? So we further develop the concept. And that's the second stage. And the third one, the third D, is to develop. So we have some basis already. We have the foundation. So we build up on the foundation. Is to develop the solutions in more details. Okay, that's the third D. And then fourth D is to deliver, as Anthony also mentioned before. So we've already have the prototype ready. Some people will call it proof of concept. Then we try to apply it to our customers' side, and we start on a very quite a small scale first and try to prove the concept. If it is available, then we will commercialize or try to scale up the whole thing. And that's the 4D, or some people call it double diamond approach. So that's the way that we try to solve the problems. And one thing I need to mention is throughout the whole stage, and actually people is very important. Everything is about people. We need to put ourselves into the shoes of our customers. So they are people. We maintain very close communication and collaboration with them to understand their pain points, as I said before, to understand their needs and try to customize or even personalize our solutions for them. So that's how to make things happen and how to make things work. And sometimes there will be some try and error process where we need to iterate in order to find the best solution for our customers. Then we prove the concept, and the rest is history. That's the way we do so.
I actually want to come back to you a little bit later on the solution side, but I actually want to first hear from Andrew as well, from your perspective too.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, one of two major strategies from our company is driving wellness as well as net zero carbon. The wellness part is actually way before pandemic. We are delivering or asking our customers to join the journey of wellness. But at the current stage, we are actually facing a different challenge because we have a lot of targets to achieve down the line, let's say the net zero carbon, but there's no time to waste. But based on the current economy, there's actually a lot of budget being cut. We have limited budget, but a lot of achievement go ahead down the road, right? So we have no more time to waste. So what happened is right now we are targeting some newer technologies to help us to achieve our target without having to spend even extra money. So there's a lot of corporations already facing the same challenge. It's the limited capital, but with a lot of action that need to be done. So we are doing a lot of POC, as Kelvin has mentioned, but at the same time, we are also evaluating what is the best value for money solution to help ourselves and our customers to achieve our ambitions. So this is what we are working on as a priority right now.
Nice, nice. Okay, so I heard about pain points, choosing the right problems to solve, prioritization, and a lot of structure from Kelvin, which I wanted to pick on a little bit. Because when you figure out what problem you want to solve, there are so many different types of solutions, and there's so many different types of ways of solving that. How do you go about that process, and what are some of specifically the challenges that you face in rolling out some of these technologies?
Also, start from me first.
Start from you first.
Okay, yeah, I have the privilege again, and thank you very much. Lots of challenges, as I said before, like a technology, as you know. Okay, we say technology is from the people, of the people, for the people. And actually, people is the biggest barrier of the technology. Really, really. A lot of technologies. We have a lot of innovation. The world is more advanced than you can imagine and you can think right now. But just people don't accept this. Or people, they're very reluctant to take the challenges or the risks they can see. So we mentioned one thing, a lot of, all four of us, POC, proof of concept. And we need to think about proof of concept is, by definition, there will be some risk in it, okay? So if it is not proof of concept, it is proof of fact, then proof of fact is meaningless to test it, right? Yeah, so by definition, proof of concept is, you know something, you don't know something. Okay, you need to find out the challenges or the risks or the improvement areas in the proof of concept. So one thing we need to bear in mind when we do the POC is, you need to accept this is not 100% in line with your current requirements. As long as you can it meets 70% of the core requirements, then it's worth for you to go ahead with the proof of concept. So throughout the whole process, you will know what we should improve and how we can better fit with your existing system. And that's also the agility we need to do. And after proof of concept, then there will be two more steps. Actually, it's a proof of market. The concept is already here. It's proven. Then more customers, they will buy the solutions and they will adopt this. That's the proof of market. And last one will be the proof of impact. So you will see the benefits, and it will enter the organic growth stage. More and more customers will buy the solutions, and it's just like the snowballing effect. It will grow more larger by itself. So proof of concept, proof of market, and proof of impact.
Just on this, Anthony, you also engage a lot of customers on this, and I think there's a lot of questions that they have on this area. Well, how does that look like in terms of sourcing the right solutions and picking the right ones for them?
Yes, I think on our side, we have another challenge. If we would like to explore any innovative or smart solution, I think the challenge is a CAT. CAT is CAT. CAT stands for CAT. The first one is C stands for the customer's pain point. A is stand for the awareness of the technology, and T is the trial, similar what Kevin says, POC. So what is the customer awareness? Because if we do not aware of our customers' pain point, no matter how we spend a lot of effort to explore a lot of technology, it's useless because we have to straight directly to go to the pain points so that we can find out the right solution. So we have a group of account manager. They work with our customer doing the daily operation. So we have to ensure that our colleagues, our account manager, to embed with the design thinking concept, or they have well understand about the ecosystem of our customers' business trade, so that they can understand about the pain point and understand what they need, so that we can source the technology. So this is the first one. And the second one is that about the awareness of technology. Why? Because in the market, there are so many so-called smart and innovative technology. It takes a lot of time for us to filter out which one is the best for us. very a lot. So it's so lucky that we have Pop's team because he has a lot of experts to help us to find out some of the innovative solution. We have our very good business CPE solution. CPE solution help us to find out some end-to-end solution for implementation. Other than that, we also partner with some startup organization. Say for example, Electron. I think maybe Electron is one of the startup organizations that he connected some of the startup and the world large wealth utility company, so the startup can provide some cutting edge knowledge, technology, and how up to tailor-make some of the solution. So we have to find a lot of way to ensure that we can find appropriate technology, but we have to more cost effective instead of to look at all the things. Right. Otherwise, we save our time. And the last one is about the trial. I think trial is very important. Is that once we are aware of the technology, but we should find a place or find the premises to test the technology, because sometimes I think I understand that most of the render that there's a difficulty for them to find a place. But from CLP Power point of view is that we have a large customer base, we have very good relationship with our customers, so that we will find our customer to do some of trial to ensure that the solution can be implemented or feasible. Otherwise, if we don't understand about its performance or and its efficiency, it cannot be delivered into the market. So this is a major challenge that we are always facing, but we are always find a way to solve.
Okay. Yeah. Let's actually hear from a customer now. I wanted to raise the same question to Andrew, but you're in an interesting position where you're at the edge of the organization and you're looking inwards. What are some of the challenges that you see in terms of bringing in these technologies to an organization?
Well, I guess we same thing to the other speakers sharing. We're dealing with human beings, and I think all human beings have a characteristic of risk averse, and we really our challenge is to get the buy-in from our internal customers. As previous speakers said, there's tons of technology out there. In fact, this world is not short of innovation. There are very good, very advanced innovation. Some are more practical innovation, but there are plenty around. Our challenge is to filter, similarly as what you're doing, filter and find the right solution that our people can accept and use. And what we are embracing is kind of like similar to the other speaker saying, is a sandbox concept where I say to colleagues, well, why don't you try at the innovation lab? Because I should the responsibility. If it doesn't work, your boss is not going, or your immediate supervisor is not going to say you didn't do your due diligence properly, because we should it. But in that process, we also try to do the co-creation and ideation and find out their constraint and what they see. Now, in a lot of time, what I found is our own colleagues are trying to address operational issues. What if this thing doesn't work on 11:55 p.m. on the Saturday night and my customer rang? What am I going to do? You know, who will there be somebody to help me to solve the problem? What is the daily cleaning issue? Do I need to arrange for daily cleaners to clean certain things, etc.? So these are dimensions that we as innovators don't usually try to address, but it is their concern. So we found that by addressing their issues and let them air out their concern, we have a two-dimensional mixture. The innovators can come up with revised solutions that would address the customer concern, and that actually create a better commercial solutions for the startup company that we work with. So both sides wins. And in that process, we are seeing an increasingly appetite of uptake of new technology within our own divisions, our own colleagues. And I think that is that is the major impetus to encourage the buy-in and the success factor that we can put in to encourage and make sure things do happen.
Right, right. On the startups, and Anthony, you mentioned this as well, I actually wanted to get Andrew's view, because I know that you work with a lot of startups. Have you found a secret formula on getting the right solutions out there? What are the challenges that you've kind of overcome?
Yeah, speaking of challenge, I actually have a very different view with the other panelists here, because my challenge is actually find the right application for a right situation. So there's a lot of startups there. They are promoting their value and what they can achieve. But in a matter of fact, they always focus. They are scientists, right? Mostly, they always think a perfect world. They always think they can deliver certain thing, but in the actual application, it actually may have very, very different solution, like with the same technology. So, for example, we find that some of the I shared previously about the walkie-talkie technologies that we trial. Actually, they think they have a very ideal Bluetooth and earphone transmission, but that's not the right focus for our client. The technology itself, it looks good, but it's not functioning good enough. But that's actually other features within the solution, which they have a voice to test features, which is very good and is very applicable to our daily operation. So those kind of things, we have to identify what is the right value for money for our client or for the right situations with the new technologies. So millions of staff out there, they are promoting their solution, but we have to translate a little bit of what they can actually deliver in the different situations. So those are our challenges, to try every different startup solution and look for the right application in the right moment. So that's our challenges.
If I can do a quick plug, Andrew spoke a little about his innovation lab. It is very, very cool. There's a lot of the startups that are there where I think Andrew's actually bringing it into the organization, which is, I think, one of the great avenues that startups can use. I do want to touch a little bit further on one specific segment of solutions, which is on the HVAC. You spoke a little bit earlier about retro commissioning being the best way. Can you tell us a little bit about what are some of the trends that you see in the HVAC space?
Yeah, definitely technologies is the biggest trend. Like we see a lot of AI application in HVAC already. But speaking of retro commissioning, there's actually another experience I want to share, because we talk about humans is the biggest barrier. It's true, because when we do retro commissioning, there's a lot of time we have to change the operation mode, and most of the time, the plant technician has been working there for over multiple years. So if they can see to operate differently, they already done so, right? But by retro commissioning, we are telling them to use the chiller plant or the HVAC system differently, so they may not believe what we propose. especially when we're trying to use technology as well, because they think they may lose their job in the future. So this is one of the things I always promote in my other sessions. So embrace the challenge is the most difficult part for us to share with the technicians or the frontline colleagues. But at the same time, I think even our senior management say the same thing. If we don't embrace the change, everybody will lose our job because technology will actually, the wave will cover everything, right? So we have to embrace the change to do more like value add service to provide in our daily operation in order to survive. So the challenges or the trend we see is definitely to apply technology and AI, particularly in the HVAC segment, and we see a lot of solutions out there. So maybe Kevin can share more as well, I think.
Maybe I supplement a little bit
Yeah,
about
please,
virtual commissioning. I think it's very good to use the virtual commissioning because previously most of our customer they just replace their equipment by those energy efficiency equipment. But for virtual commissioning, it's a new technology or new approach introduced by EMSD last few years. And this is very new. So I think this year CLP also spent about $1 million to launch a training program to engage or to train up more than 100 organization staff to ensure that they understand about this virtual commissioning system. Because for using virtual commissioning system, they can spend a less money, but they can achieve a more energy saving. So this is very welcome by the customer. So I think it's good to promote this kind of thing. So I'm very appreciate that you have a specialist on this, this area.
But this requires very different skills. I'm glad that you promote a training because for virtual commissioning, it's actually re-engineering of the process. So a lot of time we are trying to achieve same thing with achieve a goal with the same equipment or operation by changing the operation is actually quite different, particularly for space a temperature management as well. Because in current moment, all of us will have different temperature preference, right? So in order to survive in an open space office, which is very common now, with different perspective, it's actually pretty hard to achieve. So virtual commissioning is the most cost-effective solution.
Yes, just minor adjustment about the parameter of some equipment instead of replace them, so they less cost but can achieve the saving.
Yeah, but with the IoT technologies, more and more new technologies come up, actually making our life easier with virtual commissioning.
Just on the topic of IoT technologies, I actually did want to hear from Calvin on, there's a lot of R&D investment that Schneider does on this. Could you share a little bit about what some of the trends that you see in this space?
Okay, yeah, as I said before, if you listen to my presentation, then IoT and cloud will be the bedrock of the future technologies, and actually they are existing technologies. For example, the VR, okay, and lots of data, you need to send it to the VR and you can visualize the size, you visualize the assets, know the performance with your real eyes. And also with blockchain. So blockchain is a hot topic, especially with the rapid development of renewables and decentralization of the grid. So people are doing the peer-to-peer energy trading. Okay, from buildings to buildings. So it relies on the blockchain. So it is also part of the IoT-enabled technologies. Of course, then will be AI. Lots of people talking about AI. So we are moving towards this direction. So as you know, we have the analytics and how to make the analytics more intelligent and to give you more insights, how you can save your energy, how you can improve the performance of your assets. Then we need AI. And furthermore, we'll be more futuristic, will be the robotics to do the automation. Okay, you have already got the insights. You've already got what you need to do, but who carries out? Right now, it's still human beings. And what should we do in the future is the robotics will help you fix the problem, especially in some places that is not accessible to or not safe for the human beings to do so. Then the robotics will also help you. But of course, this topic is quite academic in this sense, but what we can see, it will be the future. So IoT cloud will support, underpin the megatrends of the future digitalization and also innovation of the world. That's what we can see. And reply to your point. Okay, virtual commissioning in Schneider we call it modernization. So if you have any training, then we are very happy to hear that. Actually, yeah. So we have lunch together. Right?
Okay.
In fact, we're running out of time, but I did want to touch on one topic which we highlighted earlier about POCs. And there's a lot of technology talked about where we can POC, and I actually want to hear from Andrew around POCs are great when they go to plan, but they rarely do. So I wanted to hear about what are some of the unexpected outcomes that you've seen from your POCs.
Okay, well, if I cite an example at the Olympian City shopping centers, we run a number of car parks. So one of the trial we were doing is we use an innovative sensing technology, and the of course a lot of proposal came through saying your payback blah blah blah, and but we were quite surprised to see the outcome that the power saving was more than what was suggested. And in that process, and everybody kind of felt, wow, the embracement of technology can bring unexpected outcome better than what was on paper, and in a way help them to achieve the outcome. And on that, they were saying, well, hey, why are we waiting? We should do more to other shopping centers. So that was a kind of unexpected outcome, not from me anyway, but I think the colleagues found it very, very powerful.
And did the particular startup or the product vendor take some of that feedback in for their
Yes. In fact, we work with a startup on that, and they also, I mean, they can predict it, but then everybody's kind of pleasantly surprised that the outcome matches what was predicted.
Okay. I think the panel has certainly more stories on particular POCs and their learnings from that. We're running out of time, but I did want to encourage the audience that there's a question mark on the top of the website. So please, if you've got other questions, submit them, and then we'll make sure that we can get your feedback. I wanted to close with just thanking our panel members for sharing their insights. So there's a lot more experience, and please reach out to all of us if you've got further queries and questions, and we're happy to advise. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So
Thank you so much to all our panelists and also our moderator. Wonderful section and insightful one indeed. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, with such an insightful sharing, what a better way than inviting Pops to remain on stage to deliver a closing for our morning section of today's symposium. So over to you now, Pops, for the closing remarks for today's symposium morning section.
thank you so much. Actually, our goal this morning was actually to provide a bit of a periscope of what's actually coming over the horizon, and coming quite fast. You heard a little bit earlier from Cindy about there is absolutely an urgency for us to act from what you heard on the targets of hitting 1.5 degrees and so forth. But the thing is that there is actions that you can take, and you heard a lot about the different strategies and the technologies that are available. We focus today really on buildings, and it's actually very, very relevant for all of us. We grow in these buildings, we're born in these buildings, we spend a lot of our working lives here. So what can you do about that? And that's really what this morning was really about, on the innovations and how you can address those. Earlier today, you heard from Dr. Lowe on the transition to a smarter city and what actions that are happening at a macro level. And then you also heard from CLP's Hendrik and again from Cindy on what are the strategies that you can take in terms of setting targets and what corporates are doing, including CLPs. And then also from CLP's own Serena and AWS's Olivier and also Kelvin on the technologies that are available and then the practical use cases for those. And those are some things that you can really consider in your own operations. And then also from our panel just now, I think it was a great discussion around how to go through that journey, around the behavior change, but also going through the POCs and the practical examples that you can go through and making sure getting that buy-in, which is very, very important. It's not just a technology solution, it's not just a strategy solution, it's a people problem as well that we've got lots of experience throughout the industry that you can use from your peers or also from what you heard today. I think the other aspect is that the buildings area is a key area for us, and there is sustainability benefits in addressing these. The day is not over, and in fact, this afternoon we're going to zoom in on one of the topics that we spoke about, which is on the HVAC area. Why HVAC? Well, I think all of us have been in a cooling environment where it's overcooled or there is energy wastage. And there are strategies and there are innovations and technologies that can be had. There's about 60% of our energy goes to that cooling. So it's a key area to address. And you hear plenty of things around that. And CLP has invested a lot of resources and time in looking at and addressing these. So whether you have comments or whether you have feedbacks, ideas, or want to further discuss these areas, please reach out to us. The contact details are on the website itself that you can see. And I just wanted to thank you for your time, and hopefully it was a lot of areas which will help you with your ideas and your planning for the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Pops, for the closing remarks of our morning section. Ladies and gentlemen, as what Pops said just now, if there's anything that you would like to discuss with us further, remember, email us at enquiry@clpsec.com. So today, it's now at this time, it's the end of our morning section, but today it's still not ended yet, as we still have an afternoon section. If you have registered for our PM section on HVAC innovations for next gen buildings, which starts at 2 p.m., you will still be able to access the webinar via the same live platform under the Symposium tab. And also come visit our extensive virtual booth set up by partners, exhibitors include Schneider Electric, Energy Twin, and also CLPE. We really appreciate you have been spending time with us this morning, and we do hope you enjoy this morning section, and we hope to see you all again in our afternoon section, which starts at 2 p.m. See you in the afternoon. Have a wonderful lunch.